Alright, so today on the channel we will go over the entire second selection arc of Blue Lock. Yeah, I know it's a bit late, however, for some reason, I never made a video on this arc, which is crazy, as it has so many insane moments in it. But anyway, I won't take up too much of your time. Just be sure to leave a like if you are enjoying the video, subscribe to the channel, and get your favorite snacks. And let's head right into the video. Alright, so we start off with Raichi screaming his heart out as he asks Ego if the second selection doesn't start right away. Ego tells him to shut up and explains that it takes time for the second selection to begin, and that in the meantime, he will have them undergo physical training. During this time, they won't be allowed to touch a football, and if they break this rule, or if they have trouble keeping up with their training, then they will get expelled. Everyone just gets angrier and angrier, but Ego tells them not to be cocky just because they barely passed the first selection and that he will train them till he tells them to stop. Ego then explains that in the first stratum, players are exempt from the first selection and have been training with the latest equipment, so they should be grateful to Ego for giving them the chance to catch up. He has a fierce look in his eyes as he tells them to remember that they are still at the bottom, and after that, we see them starting the hellish physical training, which started with 2-hour endurance training followed by extreme trunk training, then weight training, and then sprinting before they head to dinner time, where they don't even have the energy to eat their food. We then get to the third day, where we see Isagi falling to the floor, and Kwon asks him if he is okay, but he just says that he isn't done yet. He then gets a water bottle, but explains that they were pushing their bodies past their limits every day. We then see him in the shower being angry, as he wonders how much longer they have to keep doing this, saying that he is so hungry, but that he can barely eat anything, and starts to wonder if there is even a point to this training. But even with all of these doubts, he says that he won't let it end like this. But then, on day 10 when they were sleeping, the TV suddenly lit up, and it told them that the first selection of Blue Lock has just finished, telling them all to please put on their training suits and head to the center of the basement of their stratum. Team Z then finally looks hyped as they says that it's finally over, and all of them is now ready to give it their absolute all as they put on their suits and starts heading over before saying that they will destroy them all. Isagi's eyes even starts to light up as he says that he can finally play football again. However, he then thinks about Ego's words and knows that the enemies ahead of them are all players with higher ranks than them. But Isagi is curious to why he isn't scared at all, and that he just wants to test out his own power, and that he wants to do nothing else than to destroy them all. Anyway, they then walk into the big room and Isagi looks at all of the other players, but he is quickly surprised as it looks like they are just as tired as them are. He wonders if they haven't slept, and that at the very least they should be higher ranked than them. But as he looks at their ranks, he sees that it's not the case, and that most of them are all around similar rankings, and Isagi is super confused and wonders what this is supposed to mean. But just then, Ego pops up on the screen and tells them all good work with the physical training. Ego tells them that 25 people from each stratum have gathered here, which means that 125 of them managed to pass the first selection. Ego then says that he is sure that there are some sharp ones among them who have already noticed, but there's not a single person here who came from the first, second, third or fourth stratum, telling them that none of them ever existed and that only the fifth stratum existed in Blue Lock, telling them that all of them thought that they were in the worst teams and then fought like idiots in the first selection. Isagi's eyes then widen as he looks pissed, and it's not just him, as all of them starts to scream. Someone asks if Ego was trying to kill them, and Ego tells him that he sure is, and that for the sake of killing any shitty shred of confidence they softies might have had, he devised this trick to nurture a hungry mindset in each of them, so that they might become the best striker in the world. All of them just continues to screams and asks Ego what the point with all of this is, but Ego asks if they are stupid and tells them that this is exactly why he put them through all the training, and he tells them to listen. He takes Null Noah for example and says that even the man who is known today as the best striker in the world, he was raised in the slums of France, and while growing up poor surrounded by crime and violence, it just meant that to change his fate, the only way out was football. Telling them that there are many strikers in similar conditions, and that their hunger for goals are incomparable, explaining that if they are stuck with this country's mindset, where they would be fine with losing in football, then they will never be able to reach this level, and that, to become the best striker in the world, they need the hunger for a goal, which is why Blue Lock was created. He looks at all of them and says that they all came here wanting to bring down everyone above them, right? And that they all came here believing that they could win. And Ego says that it's just that hunger, which will become the ego that changes the world. Isagi just looks super intense, as he thinks that he wants to see his progress right now. And Ego then tells them to let the second selection begin. Ego tells them that in the first selection, they grew from level 0 to 1, and that from now on, using state-of-the-art training facilities, they will grow from level 1 to 100. He explains that the second selection consists of 5 stages, and that only those who have cleared the previous stage are allowed to move on. Their first objective is to complete the first stage, and those of them who manage to complete the 5th stage and pass the second selection will participate in a training camp with some of the world's best players that Ego has specifically handpicked. He then points at the door and tells them that only those who are mentally prepared enter the gate to the second selection individually. Both Isagi and Bachira are shocked that they have to go in by themselves, but Ego tells them that the first stage is individual, and that once they enter, they won't be able to return. But that's not all. As if they don't make it to the next stage, they won't see anyone from here again, saying that naturally the second selection is much harder than the first, and no matter how successful they were in the past, if they can't pass now, then they won't ever. He starts to look fired up as he tells them that after the second selection, only the real egoists will be left, and tells them all good luck as he disappears. Isagi thinks to himself that in the second selection, he won't have 10 teammates, but that he will be fighting alone. After that, we see that everyone is a bit hesitate to go first, and Isagi thinks that he should keep an eye on everyone, but suddenly, he sees someone starting to go forward, and he takes up 2 footballs and puts them on the ground, and he starts off by shooting the first ball high into the sky. Isagi looks at it, and is amazed by how beautiful the kick looks, but the mysterious man then goes to kick the second ball, and amazingly, he manages to make the 2 balls collide with each other in the air, which is nothing but a small feat, as this leaves all of the players in total awe, as they wonder what is up with him. Isagi thinks that it's insane, and wonders who the hell that is and calls him amazing. The guy then goes to the door and tells them to open up and that he has finished warming up. As he goes into the door, his name pops up on the screen, and he learns that he is called Rinitoshi. Igarashi looks in awe as he sees that name, and wonders if he isn't one of the new Generation 11, but Imamura says that he is wrong, and that it's Itoshi-sei. Igarashi then just wonders who Rin is, and realizes just how much better the other players are than him, but suddenly Isagi puts his hand on his shoulder and asks him what he is talking about, telling him to remember how they all were amazing in the match against Team 5. Igarashi gets hyped as he says that he is right, and that his face block was insane. Just then, Kunigami comes by, and says that his goal was better, but that's when Bachira joins and says that his dribbling was way cooler, and all of them then basically just says the same thing. Isagi then looks fired up, as he says that he will become the best in the world, and they then form a circle, and says that they are all amazing, and to meet again at the finish line, we then see Bachira waving Isagi goodbye, as he enters into the second selection. Isagi is in the hallway, and knows that he has to keep moving forward by himself, but for some reason he is getting excited, but that it's not like he haven't felt this feeling before, and he thinks that the results of the matches they have had so far is the reason for this exhilaration, and that surely this is the feeling of self-confidence. So what is he waiting for? He takes a deep breath and says that in Blue Lock he wants to become stronger, and he then walks into the second selection, but he wonders just what this weird room really is. Suddenly a ball comes out of the wall and he traps it instantly, but then behind him someone called the Blue Lock Man appears and seems to be a hologram of a goalkeeper. Isagi wonders what all of this is supposed to mean, but he then sees a goal zone appear around the Blue Lock Man, and he wonders if he is supposed to shoot there. After that, he sees the image on the ground and understands that it's moving, and that the area is gradually shrinking. Isagi then says that he gets it, and that this training is recreating a situation where he is in front of the goal and is supposed to assess the situation, and within the area as it grows smaller, he has to find a way to get past the goalkeeper and then score a goal. He then kicks the ball and sees that it's going in with ease, but that's when the Blue Lock Man decides to shut him down. As he jumps and blocks away the ball, Isagi asks if they are kidding with him, and is amazed that the projection touched the material ball. However, what's even more is that he says that normally that would go in, and says that this isn't high school level football anymore, and wonders what is up with this Blue Lock Man. Suddenly, above the Blue Lock Man, a time limit and a goal limit appear, and Isagi then finally understands everything, as he says that in this room for the first stage, he is supposed to get past the Blue Lock Man and score 100 goals in 90 minutes. And then he will clear it, thinking that he is being tested on his ego in front of the goal, and that this is a solo fight. Realizing that he can't steal goals by just shooting, as if you don't have a weapon that can burst through, then you can't clear the room. Isagi looks fired up as he says that it's time to test his weapon and his formula to create a goal. He then sees that the ball is coming from the left this time, and that the goal is on his right side, He looks at the gaps and space around, and with no wasted movement, he runs to the ball. He looks closely at the goalkeeper before he makes a direct shot, which flawlessly goes into the goal, which means that there are only 99 goals left. Isagi is now more fired up than ever as he scores goal after goal and thinks that this training is amazing. And since it recreates the critical moment in front of the goal, you can't clear this unless you better your own weapons formula and ability to score goals individually. He then scores 30 goals and thinks that he can really do this and that his weapon is working. But just then, it upgrades and goes to level 2, where we can see that the amount of holograms have increased, which firstly shocks him. But Isagi then thinks that it's reasonable, and that since it recreates front of the goal, it's natural that there are defenders there. But he still finds a spot where he can score from, and he sends away the ball, which unfortunately ends up hitting one of the holograms in its head. And Isagi realizes just how much the difficulty has skyrocketed. He starts to stress and thinks that he has to increase his precision more, and that if he doesn't evolve, then he can't break through this. After that, we get to the control room where we see both Ego and Henri. Henri says that created by improving on power enhancement facilities from Germany's top clubs, a training room where balls are shot randomly from all 4 walls, and not to mention that it's covered in high-resolution screen panels, and above all else, it's an AI hologram that amasses data from the top goalkeepers in the world, saying that the Blue Lockman system was made possible by inserting micro-sensor chips in the ball, which recreate a physical reaction once they sense that contact was made with the hologram. And she then tells Ego that after this, they are completely out of funds, and she looks worried, but Ego just tells her to be silent, and says that this is wonderful, and that this is the space that he has always dreamed of. The way to clear this first stage will differ depending on how each player uses their own abilities. For those that stayed alive thanks to other people's abilities and not their own, will feel like these 90 minutes are stopping them here. But those who can turn a 0 into 1 for those strikers who possess their own weapon, this will become a place to refine their talent and evolve it. Ego tells them to think of how to use their weapons and feel themselves improving, as the moment they leave this room, they will be strikers who reach the next dimension. And we then get back to Isagi, who managed to score a goal in the second level, and he looks super hyped as he says that he will evolve here for sure. We then get into his head as he says that 3 obstacles randomly appear alongside the goalkeeper's position and where the ball comes from. If Isagi can assess it all, then he can steal the goal. He then scores yet another goal, which means that he only has 52 goals left, with a time limit of 48 minutes. We then get back to Henri and Ego, where Henri says that somehow the kids are getting better and better, and says that this training is amazing. However, Ego tells her not to get impressed yet, as the real part of the first stage starts here. We then get back to Isagi, who has scored a total of 60 goals now, which means that he has 40 goals left. But just then, the level max starts, and this is what Ego talked about, as the targets start to move. But Isagi thinks that it's fine, as his course of action has not changed, but as the ball comes, he realizes that it's insanely fast and that it's even spinning. He tries to get it, but it's too hard to adjust to right off the bat, and Isagi looks mad as he thinks that this is the max level. Ego then explains that this implements high-level passes and randomly moving obstructions, all for the sake of artificially creating a world-class situation of being in front of the goal, saying that grasping the situation and reacting to it, shooting precision and quality, and having the stamina to keep that up for 90 minutes requires mind, skill, and body. If you don't possess all of these, then you won't be able to get past here, and imposters will notice their own weakness. Isagi then shoots a shot, but the goalkeeper easily grabs it, and Isagi thinks that this is bad, as he hasn't been able to get even one through for a while now. But he then thinks that because he's able to keep running like this is surely thanks to the training he did yesterday. But now that it's come to this, it's the first time he's felt like he's understood for real, that when he scored a goal it was always due to Bachira passing the ball to him, not messed up balls like these. Bachira was always kicking easy balls to positions where it was easy for him to kick them from, not to mention how Kunigami would always become a wall to keep the defenders away, and Chigiri would always wait for his passes where he could see him. Isagi thinks that because they were there, he was able to score goals, thinking that it was not like he was always fighting alone, as something like that won't do. And he needs the strength to be able to fight alone. He gets fired up as he tells himself to use his abilities all at once and figure out the things that must be done. He tells himself to, in a moment, grasp all of the space, read the positions of the defenders and keeper, run straight to the shooting spot, the ball's trajectory spinning, he needs to grasp it perfectly, and nail it to the top left corner. And when he does all that, he still misses, but this time he was super close. But he then says that it wasn't good, as first of all, he didn't even shoot through the course he was aiming for, thinking that he can grasp the shape and the positionings just fine. But the most important image of the direct shot isn't following him to reality. He looks annoyed and thinks that this won't work, no matter how many times he try, unless he changes his perception. He wonders just what it is that he is missing right now, before he realizes that it's his ability to shoot cleanly. He then tells himself to wait up, and says that so far, Bachira's passes were easy to shoot, but this room's rampant balls are hard to clean shoot. He then understands that of course it's no good to just blindly bail then, and that maybe the power to shoot is with around 80 to 70% to what he has been shooting with so far, and then at the last moment, put all your mind on the impact point. And as he does just that, he manages to actually get a goal again, which gets him hyped as he says that this is it, and that it's the essence of his goals, and that even in just one direct shot, calculations and formulas exist. After that, he thinks that this is actually super fun, and that he is finding new sides of himself, one after another. We then see Henri complimenting Isagi, and saying that he is getting rapidly better. Ego says that humans are creatures that only see things they want after all, but by clearly visualizing something that is wrong, the thing they see and their thought process change completely, ending it by saying that Isagi should be shaking at his evolution right now, and just then, he scores the last goal and screams out of happiness. After that, we see him walking towards the next stage and thinking that he hasn't given this much thought to even one goal as of now. However, he feels like he can fight evenly against anyone right now, and that he can still get stronger and stronger. He then walks into the next room where it says that they need to move forward in teams of 3. He wonders just what he will do, and that everyone who came here before him are all people who also cleared the first stage. He then spots both Nagi and Ryo and thinks that they are waiting for Zantetsu probably, and that it might be the same thing for everyone, that they are all waiting for someone. Suddenly Bachira comes by and screams out for Isagi. They go and shake hands before saying that they are once again reunited, and Isagi compliments Bachira on clearing the first stage. Bachira then asks Isagi who they should pick for the last spot. Isagi is just wondering what Bachira means, but he says that there is himself, and of course Isagi, and then one more. Isagi is shocked that Bachira had already included him in his team, but says that he doesn't really mind that, but still, Bachira then asks who would be good, and Isagi says that if he thinks about someone he would want as an ally right now, it would probably be Kunigami or Chigiri. Bachira says that it sounds good, but tells him that this is a 3-man team and that they can only pick one of them, and asks who it will be. Isagi thinks for a bit before saying that since neither of them has arrived, they can just pick the one who gets here first, and asks Bachira how that works. Bachira says that it works fine with him, and they then decide to wait. But suddenly, Nagi goes to Isagi and asks if he wants to team up with him and Ryo. This shocks not only Isagi, but also Ryo, who says that Nagi said that he wanted to wait for someone, but he didn't expect it to be Isagi. Nagi looks back and tells Ryo that he was the most amazing in their match, and that he wants to try playing soccer with him. Bachira then asks Isagi what he will do and if he will go with them. But Isagi says that there's no way that he will do that, as he is teaming up with Bachira, and Bachira just smiles. Isagi then apologizes to Nagi and says that he won't go over there alone. Ryo tells Nagi that he heard Isagi, but Nagi says that he's got it and asks if he can join Isagi's team, which leaves them even more in awe. Ryo then speaks up and asks him what he is talking about, as he thought that Nagi teaming up with Ryo was a given, and asks Nagi what he is thinking and what will happen to Ryo. Nagi looks back and says that he thought about soccer, and that he and Nagi together can become the best in the world, that's for sure. But in the end, they lost and they weren't the strongest, explaining that this is the first time he's felt like this, and in order for him to understand this frustration, he wants to play soccer with Isagi. Nagi's aura is wild as he says that, and his eyes light up as he says that he wants to try and put some effort in. Ryo first looks crushed before he looks at the floor and tells Nagi to do what he wants. Bachira then asks Isagi what they should do, and Isagi thinks that he knows for sure that it would be reassuring if Kunigami or Chigiri teamed up with them, and that it would be a good call. But he then thinks back to all of Nagi's insane moments in their last game, and says that he wants to try and play soccer with him. Isagi then looks intense as he tells Nagi to come on, and Bachira smirks, saying that he figured it would be the case, and they then enter into the next stage. But before that, Nagi looks back at Ryo and tells him that he will be waiting, but Ryo stays quiet. As they are walking in the hallway, Bachira tells Nagi that he is counting on him, and Nagi says likewise. Bachira then says that Ryo looked a bit sad over there and asks if Nagi is actually cold-hearted. Nagi says that he would be lying if he said that he wasn't feeling lonely without him, but that this side seemed more exciting and that following that ego is the correct way, right? Isagi then clenches his fist and thinks that Nagi is right, and that this is a place only egoists can survive, thinking that if his former Team Z teammates are the real thing, then they will meet again ahead of here. Isagi then puts out his hand as well and tells Nagi that he is counting on him, and then they get fired up as Isagi thinks that if it's the three, then he doesn't feel like they can lose, and they then walk into the next room, where they spot Rin alongside two other players. After that, Ego pops up on the screen and tells them that the second selection's third stage starts here, and that it's a 3 versus 3 team battle. We then get back to the earlier room, where we see Kunigami clearing the blue lock man room, and as he walks into the pit of players, he sees Chigiri. They shake hands, and asks if Chigiri is the only one from Team Z who have cleared it so far, but Chigiri says that he asked around, and that it seems like Isagi and Bachira already walked in with Nagi. Kunigami laughs, and says that they left him behind, and that it gets on his nerves. Chigiri then says that he thought the same before saying that he has got a suggestion. Kunigami says that he probably has the same idea, and both of them then look at each other and says that they should team up with each other. We then get back to Ego, who says that this will be a mini-game with the 3 they teamed up with just now, telling them that both teams will have Blue Lockman as their goalkeeper, and the team that scores 5 goals first wins, and then that winning team will pick one member from the losing team and steal him for their own, forming a 4-man team. This shocks Isagi. Meanwhile, Nagi and Bachira say that it's like something called Red Rover. Anyway, Ego continues and says that by rising up in the stages they will increase the number of teammates by 1 each time, and that the team that creates a team of 5 and reaches the 5th stage will have cleared the second selection. However, the losing team will have to go back to the previous stage. Thus they'll end up as a team of 2, and the moment you lose a 2 versus 2 match, the person who's not chosen in the end, the one who becomes the last player, will drop out, telling them all that this is where you rob each other. Rivals and the true form of the second selection is a rivalry battle. Thus, they are free to pick whoever they want as their opponents, and that the match will be made only if the both parties agree to it. Bachira says that he understands, and that there are more teams of 3, which will come later, and Isagi thinks that it's not like they have to fight against Rin right away. Nagi then says that since they are stealing someone by winning, it might be good to fight against those who have members they would want to get. Isagi then right away thinks of both Chigiri and Kunigami. Ego then says that Nagi is spot on, as the key to clearing this stage is picking their allies, and to represent that the new Blue Lock rankings are being announced, we then see that Isagi had gotten the number 15, Bachira number 16, and Nagi number 7. Ego explains that their rankings will be the order in which they cleared the first stage, and of course their ranks will once again be updated based on the results they show in matches. Ego then looks serious, as he says that those who grasp the chemical reaction between egos will be the strikers who claim the next ticket, and tells them to do anything to win, and he then leaves. Isagi thinks that from here on, it will be a fight to rob each other's friends and rivals. Bachira says that for now there's no hurry to choose an opponent and asks Isagi what they should do. Isagi wonders if they should wait for new enemies or pick the ones who are already here. He then overhears the ranked 3-player Tokimitsu wondering what he should do and saying that he doesn't want to do this. Isagi is in shock by his low confidence. He then overhears the number 2 ranked player Ryu, who says that if they should do this, they should go against the 4, 5, and 6 ranked players, right? And that it would be the most stylish, and that even if they win against those potatoes over there, he won't look beautiful at all. Rin then tells them to be quiet, and that it does not matter who the opponent will be, as he just wants to win quickly and go forward, telling both Ryu and Tokimitsu that they are here to just meet the numbers. Ryu gets a bit annoyed, but Tokimitsu tries to calm him down. Isagi just looks at them in awe and wonders if they aren't friends, and Rin then confirms that as he tells them that the 3 of them only happen to team up because they were the first to clear and show up, telling them that to Rin, they are just stepping stones, and that in fact the whole Blue Lock is a stepping stone for him, explaining that he is just here to take advantage of the chance to get into Japan's U20 team, and that it's all so that he can become Japan's representative and overcome his brother, and of course crush Itoshi Sai, as that's all football is about. Isagi then realizes that Rin is talking about that genius midfielder and thinks that Rin is his younger brother. Bachira just laughs and wonders how much ego Rin has. Nagi adds in and says that the team in front of them are just filled with a bunch of weirdos. After that, Isagi speaks up and apologizes to Bachira and Nagi. They are just in shock, but Isagi says that they are fine with whoever, right? And he then looks super fired up as he tells Team Rin to go, as he thinks that his ego is telling him to fight with Rin. Bachira says that it's the way to go, and Nagi says that it was what he was thinking the whole time. Rin just stares at him coldly and tells Isagi that anyone is fine. This only makes Isagi more fired up as he says that he wants Rin, and after that, all of them confirm, and just like that, the first 3 versus 3 battle is about to start. We then get explained that the match will happen in a mini field with an area of 40 times 30 meters and that the goal size is also reduced. Not to mention that the goalkeeper for both sides will be a blue lock man with the exact same specs. Those who then win will be able to steal a member from the opposite team and advance to the next, and the team who loses will be a member short and go back 1 stage. We then quickly see them getting ready before we get to Isagi, who thinks that it won't matter if the opponent is a high ranker, as he wants to test his power against these guys who are currently blue lock top 3 players. But that's not all, as Isagi is even determined to win and make Rin one of them. And just like that, the kickoff starts, and Isagi passes to Bachira. Ryu tells Tokimitsu to take care of Bachira, and he nervously says that he got it. Bachira then looks fired up and says that their rankings are just the order they passed after all, and that he isn't scared. He then takes out his signature super fast scissors, which leaves Tokimitsu in awe, and before he can even realize it, Bachira has already gotten behind him. Tokimitsu apologizes. Meanwhile, Bachira says that he also happened to level up in that blue lockman room. Isagi compliments him, and Bachira says that Rin is up next. Isagi is next to him and wants him to do a 1-2 pass, but just then, Bachira crosses the ball high up on the field. It's heading to Nagi, but just then, Ryu appears behind him, looking pretty scary. Anyway, Ryu tells Nagi that he will stop him in style, but that's when Nagi just lightly taps the ball, which makes it go back, and this shocks Ryu. But Nagi says that this distance and timing, this is all his range. And we then see Isagi running towards the ball in full speed. He looks completely devoured in aura, as he tells himself to focus on meeting the ball, and that he doesn't need any unnecessary power, calling it his new direct shot, which he shoots, and it flawlessly goes past Ryu, and right into the goal, giving Team Isagi the first goal. Isagi is super ecstatic, and says that because of the training with the blue lock man, his level has definitely risen. Bachira asks him if his shooting accuracy has gotten better, and Nagi adds in that he isn't wasting any movements anymore. They all then go to celebrate, and Isagi thinks to himself that since they understand each other's weapons, they can attack like this exactly because it's the 3 of them, thinking that it is totally working, and that they are seriously strong, even strong enough to win against the top 3 in blue lock. But we then see Rin letting out a sigh, which catches Isagi's immediate attention. Rin then says enough, and that he has just about got their level. He then looks sad, or rather disappointed, as he says that he feels so lukewarm that he could die, telling them that they still think that fighting with this one ball is nothing but a sport, asking them if they can just disappear, and calls this a battlefield, telling them that they are showing their backs against soldiers with guns, which is why he is saying that he feels so lukewarm, and he then puts the ball on the starting line before he without any hesitation shoots it right into the net right from kickoff, and scores his team's first goal, which leaves everyone in total awe. Nagi even asks Bachira if that is even allowed, and Bachira says that it is, but that it would not work normally. Tokimitsu then freaks out and calls it a super goal, and Ryu calls it stylish and tells him not to go doing that without telling him. Rin then starts to pick up the ball and says that he keeps saying this, but that he doesn't care at all whether they are a companion or an enemy, as they are all just lukewarm mobs to Rin. Rin continues to have this bored expression on himself as he tells them to just end it already, and that this is seriously just a waste of time. But that's when Isagi speaks up and tells him to hold up. He tells Rin that he is also betting his life here, and that he is playing football for the sake of his dream, the same as Rin. Rin is firstly quiet, but then asks what he means with dream, and tells him that it's not such a lukewarm, peaceful thing like that, explaining that the act of losing in soccer is the same as losing one's reason to exist, and basically the same as dying, looking really menacing as he says that soccer is a death match as far as he is concerned. Ryu calls him nuts, and Bachira adds in by calling him weird, but Rin then throws the ball back and tells them to come already, so that he can kill them, and that their lukewarm ball-kicking game will end here. Isagi just looks at him and calls it interesting, and says that he will also join this death match. They then restart the game, and Bachira gets the ball again. Isagi thinks that no matter how amazing Rin is, this is a 3 versus 3 fight, and a team battle where the one to score 5 goals first wins, which is why Isagi is determined to make Rin regret ever looking down at Isagi. Bachira then sees that Isagi is by Rin, so he decides to try, and yet again send the ball high up towards Nagi, but just as he is about to try and trap it, Ryu pops out from nowhere, and he heads away the ball. Isagi is amazed at how far that jump was, and Bachira says that Ryu saw through him. Aryu then gets back on the ground and says that he has descended, telling Nagi that his ball handling may be stylish, but if he doesn't let Nagi touch it, then he can't shine. Nagi calls it a mad jump. Aryu then starts running, and he gives it to Tokimitsu, telling him to give it to Aryu when he is in front of the goal. Tokimitsu then tries to do just that, but Bachira comes by and directs the pass a bit. Isagi compliments Bachira for making him able to get to the ball first. Isagi then has the ball but Aryu right behind him. However, he knows that losing the ball in front of their goal would put them in a pinch, and at this point, he will have to rebuild and carefully think the ball. But then out of nowhere he sees the ball flying and Isagi says that Aryu was able to kick the ball while he was keeping it. The ball then goes into the net and gives Team Rin their second goal. Isagi looks at him annoyed and says that his jumping power is no joke and with that reach that you normally can't find in Japan. He calls Aryu yet another monster who is almost unfair to go against. Aryu then says that it's settled and that on this field right now, he is the most stylish. We then just leave him and get to Isagi, who apologizes, but Bachira tells him not to mind. The match then restarts and Isagi passes Bachira. They then look at each other and Isagi asks Bachira how they will attack. Bachira sees that Nagi is being restricted and says that if his pass to Nagi is blocked, then he will have to slice through himself. He goes to Tokimitsu and tells him to just try and stop this. Tokimitsu is just afraid and asks Bachira to stop it. Bachira then tells Tokimitsu that his legs have stopped moving, but we then see Tokimitsu starting to freak out more and more intensely before he screams that he wants confidence as he starts to run with all that he can towards Bachira. Bachira is a bit shocked by the sudden change in speed, but says that there's no worries anyway as he gets behind him easily. However, it's not over, as Tokimitsu then turns around and is right by Bachira in an instant. Bachira tries to shake him off with a feint, but yet again, Tokimitsu uses an insanely fast cut to be right by him in no time. And before Bachira even noticed, Tokimitsu had already taken away the ball from him and left him stunned. Isagi, watching this from the side, thinks it's unreal and that his quickness is on a totally different level. Tokimitsu then screams that he wants a goal and he rushes towards the goal. Even Aryu wonders if he has gone nuts. Meanwhile, Nagi tells Isagi to stop him. Isagi sees that he is coming at a rapid speed, but he then screams at Isagi to get out of the way. He then gets right by him, and Isagi thinks that he can't react, so he tries to foul him to stop him. But even while having his hand on his shoulder, Isagi ends up being the one who gets turned around. Tokimitsu then looks happy as he says that he might be able to do it, and he scores his first goal. Isagi is just left on the ground, wondering what is wrong with him, before Tokimitsu lets out a big smile. But it quickly fades as he wonders if he is getting too happy, and if he will get hated if he winds up on a high horse. Isagi, who is still crawling on the ground, then says that Rin wasn't the only one who had an insane weapon, thinking that they just met, and that their teamwork is terrible, and that they are all fighting separately with just individual strength, while on the other hand, they have been fighting as a team from the start, and they have to rely on each other for their plays. So he starts to wonder what the difference really is, before starting to look lost as he looks at the scoreboard and starts to wonder if they will really lose. But suddenly Nagi comes by and tells him that it's amazing that there are guys like these still here, and says that soccer is seriously interesting. Isagi just says his name. Meanwhile, Nagi continues and says that it's thanks to Isagi that he is able to see this way and tells him that they should make it more interesting. Aryu wonders what is up with them as they are having a strategy meeting. We then get to them, who has just come up with a plan. Isagi then asks Nagi if he is the type to bring out ideas like that of his own accord, but he says that he isn't, and that this is his first time. Simply explaining that he hates feeling frustrated, so he doesn't want to lose anymore, and that it's not fun unless he wins. Bachira says that it's true, and Isagi then screams at them to go, and just like that the match is back in play. Isagi thinks that if Team Rin scores 2 more goals, then they will lose. He looks up on the field and sees that Nagi is being marked by Aryu, and that he won't be able to play freely, and that the same goes for Bachira, as his dribbling is pretty much sealed against Tokimitsu. However, they won't need to worry, as their plan is to keep in mind a 15-meter distance and attack as a triangle, explaining that Bachira is the anchor with his pass choices in this triangle, and that Isagi will lead them to the front of the goal. But since keeping the ball for a long time is impossible, Nagi and Isagi's play will be only one-touch passes, thinking that this type of attack tactic wouldn't work if it wasn't for his ball handling and Isagi's direct plays. Isagi then believes that they can actually do it and says that just like Nagi thought, if they can't win in one-on-one situations, then they just need to make a 3 versus 3 situation, and that with this they can control the middle field. But the finish won't be done by Nagi, but instead by Isagi, and that the moment they reach the front of the goal, measure timing and range, and with Isagi's eyes, he needs to run to the shooting point. Isagi then gets super fired up as he says that he can see it, and that the place is open. Bachira then smirks as he sees that Isagi is starting to break free. But just then, Rin comes in his way and tells them that it's way too lukewarm, asking Isagi if he really thought that Rin wouldn't be able to see the same scenery as someone of his level. Isagi is just in pure awe, and so is Bachira, to the point of his legs stopping to move, which Tokimitsu notices, and he tries to go for the ball, but he acts quickly and sends it over to Nagi instead. Isagi looks at this and says that it's a high-speed grounder pass and wonders if that can even work, and that right now he can't participate in the triangle. However, Bachira's eyes then light up as he tells Nagi to feel it and says that this is a present from him to Nagi, and as the ball is heading to Nagi, he actually realizes that it's spinning like crazy, calling it an interesting pass before he smiles and touches it with the back of his shoe, which lets the ball continue over Aryu, and just like that, Nagi is now free and is heading towards the ball. Bachira says, "Bingo," and Isagi thinks that this is amazing, and that Nagi and Bachira just had their talents clash together, and just like that, Nagi scores, and with that chemical reaction, the scores become 3-2. They all then celebrate together. Nagi says that it was unplanned, but says that he had no idea that passes like that existed. Isagi is shocked, but Nagi says that all of Ryo's passes he has caught so far were passed to Nagi to do whatever he felt like doing with them at that very moment. But on the other hand, Bachira's pass felt like it was pushing an idea straight to his brain. Bachira smiles and says that he bets that Nagi could get used to it, and Nagi agrees before asking how many more they need to score. Isagi then just smiles and says that they control the midfield with a triangle, and at the last phase, based on his movements, Bachira's inspiration, and Nagi's instinct, they react to that and steal goals, calling it their soccer. Suddenly, Rin speaks up and asks if they are chit-chatting in the battlefield, and asking if they never learn, and he then sends away yet another shot right from kickoff, while telling them that he is stacking his life on each moment here. Nagi knows that they are in trouble, and Tokimitsu says that they will have yet another goal, but just as the ball is about to go in, Isagi pops up right there, and is able to, in the last second, head away the ball, which even leaves Rin a bit stunned. Isagi saves the ball but falls to the floor, but he doesn't waste any time to Aura Farm as he tells Rin if he thought that he wouldn't be able to see the same scenery as someone as Rin, calling it lukewarm while looking at Rin intensely as he thinks that with these eyes of his, he will control the field. Isagi then thinks that he has smashed the specialties of all three of them into his head now, and that from here on out, he will rule it all. Anyway, we then see that Team Rin had gotten a corner kick. Isagi tries his best to predict what will happen as he thinks that Nagi is against Aryu, who's good at aerial battle with his tall height, and Bachira is against Tokimitsu, who's good at shaking off markers. He thinks that the position he should be taking is this space where he can react to both of them, and by filling this spot, he can decrease the range of passes in an ideal way. Thinking that he will cut through this pinch and connect it to a counter, and Rin then starts to get ready to kick the ball off, and as he does so, Isagi right off the bat notices that it's high and believes that he has aimed it at Aryu, but as the ball slowly starts to come down, Isagi realizes that it isn't right either, as it goes way past Aryu's head and right into the net, meaning that Rin just scored straight from the corner kickoff, and because of that, gave his team one more goal and left everyone else stunned. Bachira laughs and asks if he is serious, and Nagi just asks how they are supposed to stop that. Isagi, on the other hand, is super frustrated as he wonders if his judgment was off. He wonders if he could have stopped that if he were near the far side from the beginning, and if he did that, then he would leave space open though. Bachira then speaks up and says that if they take one more goal from them, then they will lose. Nagi says that he is right, but also says that if they score 3 more first, then they will win. Isagi agrees and says that it's time to strike back and thinks that there's no way that it will end here. All 3 of them pass around the ball to start, and Isagi then thinks that by using this triangle, they can control the field as they push through the middle field, and that he only have to worry about the final moments, saying that his last pass was read by Rin last time, and that it only went well because of the chemical reaction between Nagi and Bachira. But that kind of goal is not something that will work against the top 3 several times, which is why he has to make it happen next. The chemical reaction, as if he doesn't do that, then a goal won't be born. But then suddenly Rin appears behind Isagi and asks him how long he's going to circle these passes around, and asks if Isagi can really call himself a striker. Rin looks coldly as he tells Isagi to, "Let's end it already." Isagi's eyes then starts to fire up as he says that he doesn't want Rin to look down on him, thinking that if Rin gets this close to him, then the space behind him will be completely open, and he sees that, and then screams Bachira's name. Isagi runs with all that he can and thinks that he will create the scent of a goal, and Bachira then sends away the pass. But just then, Rin is also somehow on Isagi's side, and he asks Isagi if he found a good space or something, before telling Isagi to at least study how a human's eyeball works. Isagi is just in pure awe, as he can't believe it, and says that he thought that he had completely taken him back, and wonders just how Rin is able to be right by him, wondering if he completely predicted his vision. Everyone is in shock, and Bachira tells Nagi to go and stop him. We then get back to Isagi, who thinks that even if he read him, then that reaction was way too fast, and that it was like he knew ahead of time. Isagi starts to wonder if the scent of a goal just now, instead of seeing it, was shown to him so that he would move to that position, and wonders if he was being dragged around and playing right into Rin's hand. Isagi screams out to both Bachira and Nagi to stop him, as Isagi has just realized that the one controlling the field was not himself but Rin. Thinking that with his current capability, he can't even measure how much the difference between him and Rin is, and that he can't tell the difference is just that overwhelming and despairing. Anyway, Rin easily gets behind both Bachira and Nagi with minimal effort, and he shoots the ball into the goal. But even then, Isagi wonders why, in spite of the fact that they are going to lose. His eyes and his heart are completely smitten by the beauty of the parable that his kick drew. But with that team, Rin won the game with the final score being 5-2. Aryu then asks Rin and Tokimitsu who they should pick. Rin, however, says that whoever is fine and that it doesn't matter. Tokimitsu then asks if Aryu is fine with a special someone, and Aryu says that he wanted that one as well, and they then point to Bachira and tells him to come and join them. Tokimitsu says that his passes was amazing, and Aryu agrees, and says that he will be assisting his stylish goals. Rin then speaks up and asks them how long they will keep on talking, and tells them to get a move on, before looking over to Bachira and calling him Bullcut and telling him to stop spacing out, as Rin now holds his destiny. We then see them beginning to leave, but Bachira then speaks up and says that he wanted to stay with Isagi to the very end, but that he is going, since it's the rules. But he tells Isagi that he won't be waiting, and tells him that if he wants him back, then he will have to come and steal him, and those words leaves Isagi completely frozen. After that, we get to the 2 versus 2 room, where Nagi says that it looks like they are the first ones here. Isagi just looks depressed as he says, yeah. Nagi then asks him what they should do, and says that it seems to be a break room, and asks if Isagi wants to go there. Isagi says that this isn't the time to take a break, and that it's the end if they lose the next one. Nagi just says that they will win then, and that their opponents just happen to be too strong. Isagi, however, says that it's not the issue, and that he isn't like Nagi, and that he couldn't do anything against the top 3. But Nagi says that he scored after all. But Isagi says that he only managed that because all 3 of them were working together. Nagi asks him if that isn't how soccer is, but Isagi then screams at him, telling him that what he is trying to say is that when their team played, he was the only one who couldn't do anything. He couldn't create a chemical reaction like Nagi and Bachira did, saying that there is nothing more to it, and that if they lose the next one, then Nagi will be stolen, as he is the strongest. Isagi continues to whine like a little baby, but that's when Nagi grabs him by his hair and tells him to stop this, and asks him what Nagi is supposed to do if Isagi is like this. Nagi looks furious, and tells him that he teamed up with him because he thought that it would help him get better at soccer, and Isagi isn't helping him by being a sore loser, so Nagi tells him to get it together. Isagi asks him what his deal is, but Nagi tells him to work harder, and that Ryo wouldn't be moping like that. Isagi takes Nagi's shirt and asks him what his problem is, and tells him to team up with Ryo then, and not to compare and push his ideals onto Isagi like that. Nagi says that it can't be helped, as he has only played soccer with him. Isagi asks if he means that it's Ryo's fault then, and asks if he can't do anything without Ryo. Nagi is silent before he tells Isagi that neither can he, as he is useless without Bachira. This makes him even angrier, as he pushes himself away, and says that it's true, and that's the reason why he is irritated. But he then looks fired up, as he says that even without Bachira, he will prove that he can fight even by himself. Something then snaps for Nagi as he thinks that it's like a selection, explaining that he knows not too much about soccer, but during their 11 versus 11 matches so far, as long as a few could turn 0 into 1, everyone else could work as a team and turn that into a 100. But this time around, they are in small numbers, and the impact that each player has on the field is bigger. Continuing and saying that what is being tested is only the power of individuals, Isagi says that he sees, and that what they tried to do a playstyle focused on passing and team play isn't going to work. Nagi says that he is right, and that being able to hold your own in a one-on-one should be the minimum required, and that no matter who are your allies or enemies, the key to breaking through the second selection is to win one-on-one. and Isagi is now starting to look super fired up. But that's when Nagi asks him how one cure this frustration thing, and Isagi tells him that unfortunately, this fire won't cool down unless you win. But then suddenly, the door opens behind them, and we see Baru appearing, as he asks if there isn't anyone strong here. We then get to Isagi, who says that the beast inside him is telling him to overcome Baru in a one-on-one. Baru just walks forward and tells Isagi not to stand in front of him. Meanwhile, Isagi just looks at him and wonders how he would be able to win against Baru. Nagi then speaks up and says that it's unexpected to see him here and asks if he wasn't the strongest, and then asks Baru if he would want to play against them now, as Nagi feels like he could beat him now. This makes Baru upset as he gets right to Nagi's face. Baru calls him an amateur who only thinks about setting traps, and that Baru guesses that he wants to be destroyed by the king himself. Nagi tells him that he sure barks a lot for a loser and that he will win and make Baru his servant. We then see Isagi telling Nagi to hold up as he thinks to himself that he still feels like he couldn't beat Baru. But then Naruhaya comes behind them and says that there is a piece of paper saying that they have to wait at least 24 hours until they have their next match. Nagi just asks Isagi who that is, but he says that it's his former teammate, and Isagi asks if he is in a team with Baru, and he says that he is. He explains that their third was the GOAT Nishioka. Naruhaya then says that Baru was amazing and scored 4 goals alone, but in the end the others got 5 goals off them and lost. Then they said that Baru is too selfish and brings disarray, so Nishioka got chosen instead. Baru just asks what he is saying and says that they lost because Naruhaya and Nishioka was useless. Naruhaya tells him to calm down and that they don't have to fight them right away and that they could wait for other teams, as if they lose the next one, it's all over for them. And he asks Isagi if he isn't right, and Isagi says that he is. Baru then walks towards the break room and tells them that he won't run or hide and that they can come at him at any time and he will still destroy them. We then get to Isagi and Nagi in their room, and Nagi says that this is like a jail cell. Meanwhile, Isagi is looking at the dining area and showers before telling Nagi that they can also use the Blue Lock Man to train with. Nagi says that he is right before asking Isagi why he didn't say that they would fight against Baru, and that Nagi thinks that he would make a great teammate. Isagi says that he is right, but tells him that right now they don't have any decent strategy. Nagi asks what it is that him and Isagi is missing, and Isagi says that what he felt during the fight against Rin and the others was that his and Nagi's weapons are something that only become useful when there's a pass towards them, for example with the help of Bachira or Ryo. Isagi says that if there's no person that understands their weapons and has high ball passing skills, they can't shine. Nagi thinks that they can't use their weapons without those passes, saying that dribbling and quickness, stupidly long limbs or demon-like physique, if they have to go against that kind of stuff in a one-on-one, they stand no chance of winning. Isagi says that it's exactly what they are missing, a way to win in a one-on-one without passes. Nagi just apologizes and says that it got bothersome and says that he will think about it tomorrow, and we then see Isagi still trying to figure it out. After that, we get to the next day, where they are in the dining room, and Isagi says that there's plenty of guys who got dropped here after losing. Nagi, however, tells him to drop it, and says that this is the worst, and says that the only side dishes here are natto and takuan. Isagi laughs, but says that he is already used to that. Nagi then asks him which team they will be fighting. Isagi says that honestly, if they look for a pair that's weaker than them, then they can probably win easily, but if they pick a weaker teammate like that, they might just lose at a higher stage and just be sent back here again, saying that in the end, it would be best to battle strong-looking guys and get them on their team, but by doing that the risk of losing skyrockets, so they can't just choose anyone. Nagi says that he is right, but that everyone is most likely thinking the same thing. Isagi says that he is spot on and thinks that this is a rivalry battle and that it's not enough to just win and that they can't advance forward unless they think about who to team up with. We then see Isagi in the training room, and he says that he can improve his direct shot in this training room, but even if he can score against the Blue Lock Man in a match, he might not be allowed to do anything, saying that Bachira and the top 3 can win one-on-one battles and that they're able to create chances with their own abilities. It's those monster-level guys that he has to overcome, and the ability to create a chance in a one-on-one, and a hint to finding that is to experience it one more time. Suddenly, he hears someone calling out for him, and it's Naruhaya, who asks him if he has picked their next opponents yet, but Isagi says that they haven't. Naruhaya says that he figured so much as if they lose, then it's all over. Naruhaya says that they have to take on a risk after all, and Isagi asks him what he means, but Naruhaya says that after all, if they lose here, then they will be the ones who won't get chosen, and says that they are both the same with a smirk on himself. Naruhaya says that it's scary, as his teammate is Baru, and his is Nagi, and that they will never be chosen when it comes down to it. Isagi tries to say that it's not like that as Naruhaya is still good, but Naruhaya tells him not to pretend as after all the one he wants is Nagi and not Isagi. This shocks Isagi, but Naruhaya says that Isagi must feel the same way as if they don't choose actually strong people as teammates. Then winning from here on out will be impossible. After that, Naruhaya looks super fired up as he takes out his hand and tells Isagi to beat each other and to put both of their lives on the line, telling Isagi to not get scared as they are at Blue Lock after all. Isagi just thinks that he can't back down after being told that, and he says it's fine by him and that he was just thinking about how he wanted to fight with them, and it's then settled. However, there's a 24-hour time limit until the match actually starts. We then get to another training room where Isagi is now training with Nagi. Nagi tells Isagi to come, and he does just that, but Nagi then takes away the ball and tells him that he is too obvious. Nagi tells him that Baru's weapons are an absolute middle shot in front of the goal from the left side at most 27 meters, and to invade into the point to shoot that from there, and the physique for charging in is what he needs. Isagi says that he is right. After that, Nagi says that Isagi is no good and that it's not even worth training against him, which gets him a bit annoyed. Nagi then scratches his head and says that it's fine that they set up the match, but asks what their plan is. Isagi says that they won't know until they start. But Nagi says that Isagi was on that one-on-one situation plan before, and Isagi says that it's true, but that he thinks that the way of finding out how to beat a serious Baru would be actually going up against him. Nagi calls it a total gamble for them to survive, and that they will have no choice but to find the strength in one-on-one in the middle of a 5-point match against Baru. Nagi says that for starters, he will mark Baru while Isagi takes Naruhaya. Isagi says alright, but thinks that destroying those two will become his evolution for him to reach the next stage, and if it doesn't work out in the end, then it all means that he was a person who wasn't going to go any further. We then see Naruhaya and Baru also training before Baru says that he is going to sleep, before telling him not to get in his way and to just run around the field. Naruhaya says that he's got it, and he then falls to the wall thinking that he doesn't want it to end yet. After that, it has gotten 24 hours and the match is about to start. Nagi asks Baru to do it and asks if he did his kneeling down practice properly, and Baru just says that he will kill him and that he will make Nagi his servant. Isagi then calls out for Naruhaya and tells him that he will crush him and tells him to come at him seriously, and Naruhaya says of course, and just like that the kickoff has started and Nagi has the ball. Baru goes to block him right away, and Nagi is shocked by Baru's insane presence before he tells him to come on, and he then thinks that he will face Baru head on as it only begins after he beats him, and Nagi then starts going towards him. Baru however just asks him what the hell that dribbling is, calling both the range and timing trash. He then takes the ball and says that he is facing Baru after all, and that he lacks respect. Nagi then screams out for Isagi, and Isagi knows that he has to stop him, but just then he sees Naruhaya moving, and he wonders what he should do. But he tells himself to calm down as they are still outside Baru's middle shooting range. But just then, as he says that, Baru actually sends away his shot, which goes flawlessly right into the goal, which means that his shooting range has gone up, and with that, Team Baru leads with 1 goal. Nagi says that this is bad, and Isagi agrees, but he thinks to himself that they will just have to find the weapon of strength in one-on-one battles within this match. Isagi then gets the ball from kickoff, and Naruhaya is right in front of him. Isagi thinks that if he can just get past Naruhaya in a one-on-one battles, the match's odds are then a 50-50. However, he is quickly annoyed, as Naruhaya keeps himself real close to him all the way. He wonders if he should pass with some kind of perfect course that Nagi could use, but he also throws that idea to the side, as he doesn't have that kind of technique. This leaves Isagi stunned with not knowing what he can do, but just then, Nagi's eyes light up, and he screams out for Isagi that anything works, and to just send it to an open space, and Isagi does just that as he shoots it to the left where no one is. Baru tells them that they can't get past him with a trash pass like that, but Nagi says that he knows that, but that it doesn't matter, as he just came up with a way to beat him. Nagi then thinks that if he stops when they are facing each other, then he can't evade Baru's pressure and charge, so they will instead fight while Baru is chasing his back, thinking that it's a formula that is possible to recreate, saying that he doesn't need something like a special pass, as he can blow life into the ball with just the first touch, and just when Baru is about to try and go and steal it, Nagi traps it with the back of his heel, which gets the ball over Baru, and Nagi says that he is the god of the field. Isagi just looks at him in pure awe and wonders at what kind of speed Nagi is evolving at. Nagi then scores and says that they can beat them and that they just need Isagi now. Isagi, still in awe, thinks that with that one play he grasped it completely and that he has the formula to win a one-on-one battles. Nagi then says that he can get it with his back turned and that he won't lose anymore. However, we also see that Baru is mad as he says that he will crush them, and just like that, the match was back on with Baru having the ball. Nagi screams at Isagi to follow him and to surround Baru with a 2-on-1. Isagi asks what will happen to Naruhaya, but Nagi tells him not to worry as Baru is the king, so he isn't going to pass right after a loss. They then go to surround him, and it's just like how Nagi said. Naruhaya asks for a pass, but Baru tells him to be silent, and just then, Isagi comes out of nowhere and gets the ball. Isagi then thinks that Nagi's weapon is trapping, and if he can create a trap from behind like just now, he says that a defender, going against Nagi while he's backwards, they would normally approach him in a way to not let him see forward, and by using that logic, he can dodge with an unpredictable on-touch, and that this is how Nagi can get past his one-on-one battles. But Isagi thinks that they are aware of it now, and therefore Naruhaya won't approach him in the same way, which means that without the pressure from a defender up close, Nagi can look forward and make plays completely freely, and that the pass should go to the same direction as him. So Isagi passes the ball, just like a shot, because Nagi can now make use of a black hole trap, which he does. Isagi says that this worked because Naruhaya was too far away, explaining that this is Nagi's power, and that by creating traps that blows life into a play, and absorbing trap that kills the momentum to zero, and by making use of these two types of traps, Nagi's formula is complete. And just like that, Nagi scored their second goal of the match and says that it's just 3 goals left. Isagi just looks at him and says that he wants to find something too, and a method to win in a one-on-one battles. We can then see Baru being super angry as he says that he can beat the likes of them by himself, and he shoots the ball right from kickoff, trying to do the same thing that Rin did. However, this time the blue lock man stopped the ball, but it's far from over as Naruhaya then comes and takes the ball, which shocks Isagi as he got there so fast. Baru then screams at him to pass, and Naruhaya says that he knows as he passes the ball to Baru, who easily scores, making it even. Isagi looks at this annoyed and says that Nagi and Baru have equal scoring ability, which means that him and Naruhaya are the ones who got the key to victory here. The match then restarts, and Naruhaya goes to Isagi. Naruhaya asks Isagi if he knows why he wanted to play against Isagi. Isagi says that it was so that he could take Nagi onto his team, but Naruhaya laughs and says that it was just an excuse, as his biggest reason is because he thought that he could beat Isagi, telling him that he knows it because they were together before, about what Isagi can and can't do. Naruhaya gets close and tells him that he is not the kind of player who can play alone, and that he can't score goals by himself like Bachira, Kunigami, or Chigiri, telling him that everyone was hyping him up a lot, but he could only do anything because of other people, continuing and saying that he is not a genius like Nagi or Baru, but that he is just a mediocre person like Naruhaya himself. Nagi then screams out for Isagi and asks him what he is doing, and to give the ball to him, but as he goes to try and pass it, Naruhaya intercepts the pass, and the ball goes over to Baru instead. Nagi screams for Isagi to stop him, and Baru then starts to rush with all that he can towards Isagi, charging in like a wild beast, but as Isagi was so focused on Baru, Naruhaya could sneak behind him without him noticing, and Baru then passes the ball to Naruhaya, who went behind Isagi. Baru tells him to give it back, but Naruhaya refuses, and says that he also wants to reach the level of geniuses. Isagi then realizes that he got done over as he remembers that Naruhaya's weapon was that he can fly across the pitch, thinking that he also can't win against Naruhaya. But just as Naruhaya shoots his shot towards the goal, it actually misses, which leaves him stunned. Nagi screams at Isagi to get the second ball and to steal it for a counter. But just then, Baru comes in between both of them and tells them to get out of the way and not to stand in front of the king, and just like that, he reaches the ball first and then scores their third goal of the match. Both Isagi and Nagi falls to the ground, and Isagi looks up and thinks that Naruhaya is also missing something like him. Isagi explains that he has his direct shot, but no weapon to get him there. Meanwhile, Naruhaya has a weapon to get himself to the goal, but not the ability to score consistently, calling both mediocre in opposite ways, and saying that the one who's able to conquer their weakness will conquer the one-on-one and win this match. Isagi then puts the ball back down and thinks that unless he is on par with those geniuses, he will never be able to become the best striker in the world. His eyes then get filled with determination as he tells himself to search for the power that he is lacking. After that, Nagi calls out for him and says that they are bringing it back, and Isagi agrees, thinking that he doesn't want it to end here. It then starts, and Isagi has the ball as he runs towards Naruhaya. He knows that he needs to try out everything that he can come up with, saying that it's not just dribbling but by turning it into a 2-on-1 even for a second, by doing a 1-2 with Nagi. Then, even if he lacks speed, he can still get behind Naruhaya. But just then, as he thinks that he is free, Naruhaya comes before him, telling him that it isn't happening. Isagi then realizes that this isn't good enough, and even Nagi asks him what he is doing and passes the ball back to Isagi. Isagi is mad as he says that all he can do for scoring is rely on Nagi, but if he does that, then he will never be able to beat either of them. Anyway, he still sends across to Nagi, who traps it effortlessly before scoring a goal, making it even in the scores. Isagi wonders if changing his tactics and actions is not enough to find the strength he is after. Suddenly, he hears Naruhaya screaming behind him out of frustration, saying that he won't let it end like this. Isagi just looks at him before saying that instead of his actions, he needs to change his thinking and that he can't get caught up in how he used to play, as he needs to discard everything else he has learned so far. But just as he is in his mind, Baru takes his chance and shoots the ball from kickoff again, and it's just about to go in, but luckily Nagi is there to save it in the last second. Nagi then falls to the ground, but the ball luckily goes over to Isagi. Isagi thinks that he will counterattack right away, but that's when Nagi screams at Isagi to look behind him. Suddenly, Naruhaya is there, and he steals the ball away from him, leaving Isagi stunned. Naruhaya then looks at him and says that he won't lose a one-on-one if it's against him, telling Isagi to watch and saying that it's his win. But just as he is about to shoot, Nagi comes in front of him and tells him to just try it and calls him a shrimp. Now Nagi looks absolutely demonic here, and this makes Naruhaya freeze up. But then, luckily for him, Baru comes on his left side and screams at Naruhaya to pass the ball, which he does, and with a pass, and him being totally free, he scores his 4th goal of the game. Nagi looks annoyed and says that they are in trouble now, and Isagi thinks that if they score another one, then they will lose. But still, he thinks that the play right now was big, saying that he shouldn't have let Naruhaya steal the ball from him, and that it was a great chance to turn around. He wonders if he could have avoided that if he had observed his movements, but he came at him from outside his field of vision, and it would have been impossible. Isagi couldn't possibly have seen him as Naruhaya was in a blind spot. But then, something clicks inside his brain as he thinks that maybe Naruhaya was always going against him by positioning where Isagi couldn't see him, which makes Isagi realize that maybe he was wrong in the way he was going on about this, thinking that when it comes to soccer, a one-on-one isn't always just the moment where two players are fighting for the ball, but off the ball, and your movements when you don't have the ball are also a sort of one-on-one. Isagi thinks that if he thinks of every play happening on the field as a continuous sequence of one-on-one battles, then the logic of the field he was seeing can be overturned. Suddenly, as he is in his mind, Nagi screams out for him and tells him to go. Isagi agrees, and Nagi says that for the time being he will score one back. Isagi then has the ball and is, like always, up against Naruhaya. But now he says that he has started to understand that Naruhaya is always aiming for his blind spot. He then thinks back to the time with Rin when he was also using his blind spot and told him to study how eyeballs work. Anyway, Nagi then calls out for Isagi, and Isagi sends the pass away to him. But Isagi doesn't really care about what happens, as he says that he has found it, a piece of a new mindset. He thinks that he will create a new puzzle and smash it into his head and rewrite his own common sense. For the sake of winning, he should destroy everything about him and be reborn as many times as it needs. After that, we also see Nagi breaking free and getting to the ball before he scores his 4th goal in the game, just like Baru, and they are now even. Nagi then speaks up and says that whoever scores next is going to win, and says that they will have to steal the ball, but as he looks at Isagi, he asks him if he is even listening to Nagi. Isagi looks intense as he tells Nagi to be silent and says that he is on a roll right now. He then remembers Isagi saying the same thing in the Team Z match, and he says, "Very well, striker," and he guesses that it means that they will win, and Isagi says that he is right. After that, we see Baru stomping down the football onto the field, but as he looks ahead, he sees Nagi being right where he wants to try and score from kickoff. Nagi tells him that with this, he can't shoot in the right corner that he likes so much. We then see Naruhaya beside him, who says that whoever scores next wins and says that they're cautious against a shot straight from the kickoff, so the course is blocked. He says that instead, they could easily bring it to the goal in a 2-on-1 and that they should pass to each other, but Baru cuts him off saying that he can do that in his mediocre dreams, and that he is the one who decides what he wants to do, saying that this is how he wants to live and how he wants to win. He starts looking furious as he says that this is his imperial philosophy, as he then shoots away the ball towards the goal, but instead of going to the right corner where Nagi is, he went for the left corner, which only just misses the goal, and it then becomes a battle between Isagi and Naruhaya for the second ball. Naruhaya thinks that he is closer than Isagi, so he will reach it a moment faster, but he sees that Nagi is coming as well, and that the only course he has left is the goal, thinking that if he stopped the ball, then the two of them will steal it from him. Just then Baru comes on his right and tells him to pass. Naruhaya wonders if he should pass or not, but he then gets fired up and says that a direct shot is what he needs right now, saying that in order to reach the level of these geniuses, he can change himself with his goal and his life. So as he gets to the ball, he uses Isagi's direct shot weapon and shoots it towards the goal, but his dreams quickly disappear as he sees the ball missing. The ball then goes to Nagi, who tells Isagi to go and to connect passes to counter-attack. Isagi thinks that right now Naruhaya tried to copy his direct shot, a piece that he lacked to score a goal. He took inspiration from his plays and bet on it with all that he had. Isagi then starts running with everything that he has and says that if it were possible to use both his and Naruhaya's weapons, then it could help in reaching the level of geniuses. Nagi just looks at Isagi, confused, and Naruhaya then tells Baru to stop Isagi and that he will mark Nagi. Baru, however, screams at him not to order him around and says that he will crush Isagi on his own. Baru quickly catches up to Isagi, but Isagi thinks that off the ball, when it came to moving around without the ball, what he was still lacking was the eyes of the opponent, the body's structure, and a human's field of vision. He then looks at Baru and says that right now he is looking at Isagi and Nagi, who is following a bit behind while holding the ball. Isagi says that he needs to be aware of both of them, but because of their positions, it's impossible to keep tabs on both at the same time. Isagi knows that Baru needs to check on the ball sometimes, and in that second he can get in his blind spot, and then Baru will reflexively move to find him, and then he will move on the opposite way again. He then says that it's here and tells Nagi to send it. Nagi says that he sees it and passes the ball to Isagi, who has just broken through Baru in a one-on-one. Naruhaya just looks at it in shock and says that it's his step work. Anyway, as the ball is going to Isagi, he says that he won't stop at just copying, as he is going beyond to an unknown territory with the geniuses. And just like that, Isagi scored the last goal and won them the game. Meanwhile, Naruhaya looks lost and says that in a split second, Isagi devoured his talent. After that, both Nagi and Isagi rush to each other to celebrate, as they have just won. Naruhaya, on the other hand, falls to the ground and wonders why it wasn't him, thinking that if only he had landed the shot earlier, he could have won. He starts to slam his hands into the ground and wonders why it turned out like this. Isagi then goes over to him and says that it was a close match and that between him and Isagi, it could have been either one of them. But Naruhaya says that he is wrong, saying that up until earlier, he thought that he and Isagi were on even ground, but he who has lost knows better. Naruhaya says that when he was in that position, he needed the technique that Isagi calls direct shot, so he tried to copy it, but it didn't work. And what he really did was merely a pretense of the real skill, like what a monkey would do. But Isagi is different. In that moment, he took away that weapon of his and made it his own, explaining that it's probably because he isn't afraid of changing and that he isn't an ordinary person, telling Isagi that he fought with a full resolution of destroying himself. And from there, he was able to create the best version of himself, calling Isagi a genius in terms of adaptability and saying that Naruhaya underestimated that, calling it their difference in their ability. Naruhaya then starts to cry, but Isagi thanks him and says that because he fought with Isagi, he was able to become stronger. Naruhaya is silent, but in his head asks Isagi to not take pity on him and to stop it. After that, Nagi speaks up and asks Isagi who they are bringing. Both Baru and Naruhaya look at him, and Isagi clenches his fist and says that he knows that they are going to go much higher, which is why he looks at Baru and says that he isn't done yet, right? Baru and Naruhaya looks at him in shock, and Isagi is just about to say something to Naruhaya, but he says that he already understands, and he thanks Isagi for taking him down. Isagi then tells him that he is going to win for his part as well. Naruhaya just asks him what he is saying and that if you say such soft-hearted things in this blue prison, then he will lose immediately, explaining that his part is already over right at this very moment, before he says that he also had a reason why he couldn't fail. We then get into a flashback to Naruhaya's past, where we see a ton of siblings and he tells them all to eat. Some of his siblings are sad, but he tries his best to cheer them up and to get them to eat their food. After that, we learn that their father and mother suffered an accident 2 years ago. Naruhaya sees that his sister is worried, but he tells her not to worry, as once he becomes a football player in the future, he will earn a lot of money, and they will be able to live a better life, and that he will protect everyone. We then see Naruhaya on the day of going to Blue Lock, where his sister says that she wanted to buy him a charm, but that they are too expensive. So she bought him a caramel as a substitute, telling him to do his best. But we then get back to Blue Lock, where he says that his dream ended right here. As Isagi is about to leave with Baru and Nagi, Naruhaya calls out for him, telling him that he better win and that he must struggle to death and keep winning. Isagi says, "All right," and Naruhaya then says, "So long, fellow genius," as he starts to cry as he gets eliminated. After that, we rewind the clock to 24 hours before, where we see Kunigami and Chigiri still in the room. After the Blue Lockman stage, Kunigami says that both of them can group together, but since it's a 3-man group who will be their third, Chigiri says that it would be nice if they could find someone on their level, someone who can pass and control the balance between the three of them. After that, Chigiri spots someone and points towards him. We then learn that it was none other than Ryo, who was sitting in a corner. Kunigami goes to him and asks him if he is alright, but Ryo just tells them to leave him alone. Kunigami asks what's wrong, but Chigiri says that he guesses that he's sulking since he got dumped by Nagi, who he thought was his pet dog. Ryo then looks mad, but Chigiri tells them that they are the same and that they want to crush both Isagi and Bachira, who went ahead of them, and Kunigami then once again asks Ryo if he wants to come with them. After that, we get to the dorm room, where Isagi says that he thinks that he might have misunderstood how living with two geniuses can be, as we see both Nagi and Baru fighting over a bed, which both of them want to sleep on. Isagi tries his best to add in that he also wants that bed, but he gets overshadowed by Baru, who says that the bunk beds are too small, and if the dude in the top bunk is rolling around, then the bottom's gonna shake. So he says that he is taking the single bed. Nagi says no, and that they should do rock, paper, scissors to decide it, and asks why Baru would get to pick first. Baru just says that it's because he is the rule, but Nagi then takes a pillow and throws it right towards him, telling him to stop talking big when he lost. And after that, it turns into a whole brawl between Nagi and Baru, while Isagi just tries his best to survive. Suddenly, Isagi gets enough and screams at them to stop it. Baru then sees something and tells them to wait a second and tells them to stop messing up the bed. Isagi is shocked, but Baru then tells them to ventilate the room and not to leave their shirts and towels laying around. Isagi just says, of course, and wonders if Baru is actually super tidy. Nagi says that rather than a king, he should be more like a maid. Anyway, the two of them continue to go back and forth. Meanwhile, Isagi thinks that Baru's way of living is a bit annoying, but at the same time that self-rule produces that next level ability on the field, and that it's the source of Baru's ego on the field. And Isagi thinks that he wants to know more about Baru and that he wants to understand him. So Isagi asks Baru if he wants to practice after this, as if they don't understand each other, then there won't be any synergy between them. After that, we get to training, and Nagi says that practicing is fine, but that it has just been the two of them this whole time, and asks what Baru is doing. Isagi says that it's his usual training routine, and that it seems pretty rigorous. Nagi asks Baru if he is done yet, so that they can practice their formation. Baru tells him to wait another 40 minutes, and that he will be ready then. Nagi asks if he forgot his sense of teamwork somewhere. Isagi says that Nagi is right, but that his diligent training and stoicism are what make Baru's plays so powerful. Nagi says that it's true, but that it seems kinda crazy. Meanwhile, Isagi runs to Baru and says that he will do it with him. Baru looks at him annoyed and says that he won't be able to keep up, but Isagi tells him that they won't know until they try, and Baru then tells him to do what he wants. Nagi just looks at them and wonders what this turn of events is before saying that he will also join in, and Isagi thinks that to win and move forward, to defeat the top 3 with this team, they will create a synergy. We then get to a Blue Lock conference room, where Henri says that here is the current situation with the second selection progress, saying that by establishing a personal connection between individual personalities, they deepen each player's self-awareness and awareness of other, saying that each player will recognize this, create teams and play together. Originally, tactics and team direction coming from coaches will be established within the players, and by having the players decide for themselves, they can improve their abilities as individuals, explaining that this is how they will build an independent striker with no equal, and that this is the growth program of Blue Lock second selection. After that, Buratsuta speaks up and says that he is saying what everyone here is thinking, but doesn't it just boil down to talent in this world? Saying that geniuses will be geniuses even if they leave them alone, so is Blue Lock even necessary? The others agree, but Ego cuts them off and asks if they want a star that badly, asking them just how many geniuses have they snuffed out with that line of thinking. Buratsuta asks him what he means, and Ego says that all of them create a so-called genius, and the moronic fans of the Japanese star players obsess over him. Then they spend all of their money buying uniforms and tickets just for this genius. Filled with misplaced confidence, this genius takes their skills overseas only to be met by difficulties because of the culture, the language barrier, and communication, and as a result, they're unable to produce the results they wanted. 2 to 3 years later, they return to Japan and finish their soccer career in a mid-level national league, explaining that they continue to repeat this situation, so Japanese soccer will forevermore be third-rate. and because of this, there's no chance in hell that a world-class striker will be born. Some of the people in the crowd says that they need at least some profits, and Ego then asks them all one question. He asks them what talent really is. They all talk, but Ego says that talent is the ability to prove one's strength, gambling their future, believing in themselves and their dreams, and proving to the world that their strength is real. That is what he calls a genius. Ego then starts looking super cold as he says that he will create a genius with Blue Lock, and that this is the proof that he is gambling his future on. Buratsuta just smiles and says that failure won't be tolerated, and we then leave them and go back to Team Isagi, where we see that Baru took the single-person bed while they were showering. Nagi asks if he can knock him back up, but he then sees that Baru cleaned up for them, and Nagi thinks for a bit before he heads up to the bed on top and says that it's a bother to think about and that he is going to sleep, which means that Isagi ended up with the worst bed, and he says that geniuses are so demanding. After that, we see Kunigami, Ryo, and Chigiri training together, and it's going pretty good. They then take a break, and Chigiri says that Isagi has probably already moved on, saying that team coordination is important, but that they have to hurry up and move forward, or else they will clear without them. Kunigami says that it's true, but that they can't rush it either, as they could randomly win and pick random teammates, but that's simply the wrong priority, as what they need now is to raise their strength properly. Saying that winning against Bachira, Isagi, and Nagi is their ultimate goal, so they have to find someone strong and move forward with them, Chigiri says, yeah, but that they have been here a while, and that all the stronger guys have already moved on, and Kunigami says that he is right. Chigiri then asks Ryo what he thinks, and Ryo looks super depressed as he says, as long as he can win against Nagi, he doesn't care about anything else, and that he will make Nagi say that he needs him. Kunigami asks him if that's a lingering affection Ryo has for him, but Ryo says that it's called revenge. We then get to the dining room where we see Isagi thinking back to Naruhaya, calling him a genius in terms of adaptability, but he wonders what that really means. Isagi thinks that he won against him simply because he was able to mimic the way he dashes to the rear, and he wonders if adaptability mean to play according to the opponent's strength. If that's the case, then the next one he has to adapt to would be Baru. Isagi then sits down by Baru and asks him what his ideal match is like. Baru asks him what type of question that is, and wonders what Isagi will do with the information. Isagi says that he plans to synergize with his playstyle, and to achieve that, he needs to have a better understanding of his ideal match. Baru just calls it a bad idea, but Isagi once again asks him to answer. Baru just says that move was according to his wishes for the sake of his goal. That's it. Isagi is annoyed and asks if that isn't the reason why he lost to them before, and asks if he wouldn't consider a more team-oriented playstyle. Baru asks him what he means, as the only reason why they lost was because Naruhaya wasn't moving accordingly. Isagi says that the fact is that Baru lost, even if he can score a goal by himself, he can't take down a team by himself. Baru gets a bit mad and says that he will win with his own goal and that it's a rule he won't bend, telling Isagi that if he cares so much about team play, then he should have chosen Naruhaya instead. However, Isagi says that it's not it, and that if it's Naruhaya, Isagi is sure that he would have cooperate probably, but surely the same synergy won't occur, and that he was able to mimic his weapon, so he understands this, explaining that if it's something he can easily mimic, then it won't do. But Baru on the other hand, has his 28-meter range shot and charge power, saying that even if he were to practice these his whole life, he still wouldn't be able to master them. Isagi then looks right into Baru's soul, and says that if he teams up with Isagi, then he can make his skills shine even brighter. Baru then laughs and gets up and says that if that's the case, then Isagi should just do what Baru tells him to. Isagi says that there's no team play in that, but Baru tells him to be silent and that he is going to the bath. Isagi is left just wondering what is wrong with him, before thinking that his talent is the real thing though, and yet the fact that he doesn't do team things will be the cause of him not being able to win, calling Baru a waste of a genius. We then get to the bath area, where Isagi says that somehow his muscles today are pretty firm, and that it must be because of Baru's training course. Suddenly, however, he gets a ton of water splashed on himself, and as he looks back, he sees Kunigami. Isagi asks him why he is here, but Kunigami says that it's his question and why Isagi is still in the third round. Isagi then explains about everything. Kunigami just laughs and says that he hasn't seen him for a while, but that it seems that he has gone through war. Isagi then asks about Kunigami and who he is with, and that's when Chigiri comes by and says that he is alongside Kunigami, and asks Isagi why he went on his own and calls him stupid Isagi. After that, both Kunigami and Chigiri ambush him and spray water at him, asking why he didn't wait for them. Isagi says that he knows and that he is sorry and that he planned to wait but that Nagi invited him. Suddenly Nagi floats by and asks if they are talking about him, before saying that this is the most relaxing way to enjoy a bath. After that, both Chigiri and Kunigami says that they would also go if they got an invitation from Nagi, but then Baru comes and tells Nagi not to swim as this is a public bath and he looks pissed. Anyway, as Baru and Nagi argue, Chigiri asks Isagi if they have decided on their next opponents. Isagi says that they haven't, but asks if they have decided. But that's when Ryo interrupts and says that they are obviously going to go against them, saying that he grouped up with Kunigami and Chigiri for that reason. After that, Nagi sees him and goes to say hello, but as he goes to him, Ryo slaps away Nagi's hand. Nagi looks shocked, but Ryo tells him that they are rivals now and that he got left behind and that he will fight and defeat him. Chigiri and Kunigami agree and tell them not to run away and that they will fight. Isagi then looks super fired up as he says that it was exactly what they wanted, and just like that, the match was established. We then get to 15 hours before the match, where we see Isagi explaining the plan. He says that they are going to have Baru circulate passes around, and depending on the situation, Nagi and Isagi will work together to throw off the opponent, and then they will use a strong move to finish them off. Nagi says that it sounds like he will be making a bunch of decisions, and Baru just tells them to pass to him. However, Nagi says, hell no, as he won't pass it either. Baru then tries to argue his case. Meanwhile, Isagi thinks, as expected from them, and that it's going to be tough for them to get along on the field, and that Isagi will have to adapt to them and become the key to awaken their chemistry. Nagi then asks Isagi why he replied so quickly to their challenge, and asks if it wouldn't have been better to find other opponents. Isagi says that it's because he didn't want them to underestimate them, and also with Nagi's ball touch, Baru's charges, and his direct shot, these skill sets that they possess are what they need to reach Rin and the top 3. However, he believes that they are definitely lacking in strength. Nagi asks him what he means, but Isagi says that he wants Chigiri's speed. Baru, however, tells them to wait, and that if they are going to take somebody, then they should take someone who would pass to him, saying that it has to be Kunigami that they take. Isagi says that it's true, but Nagi then says that for him it would have to be Ryo, and that they did promise that they would partner up in the end. Isagi then realizes that who they want is all over the place, but Nagi says that it's fine, and that they don't need to decide now, as after all, if they lose, then it means that somebody from this team will be taken. After that, we get to Chigiri's team, where we see Kunigami saying that Chigiri and he will utilize their skills and keep attacking them from the sides. Meanwhile, Ryo will be the anchor that balances them out. Chigiri says that he is fine with it, and that they have trained in anticipation for this. Kunigami then says that the only thing left is to establish who each of them will mark, but without any hesitation, Ryo says that he will mark Isagi. Ryo says that he will seal his movements and prove to Nagi that he made the wrong decisions. Kunigami says alright, and that he will mark Baru then, which leaves Chigiri with Nagi. Chigiri then asks them if they win this match, who should they pick? Kunigami says that, to be honest, Isagi's skill set would greatly benefit them, but that there's no doubt that Baru's skills are also desirable, but in terms of scoring, it would probably be Nagi. Chigiri agrees, and he then asks Ryo if that would be alright. Ryo, however, looks at the floor and says that he was thinking after defeating him, he would make him feel the same pain he did back then. Kunigami tells him that it's a hefty personal vendetta, and that he isn't alone in this team after all. Chigiri just says that in that case, when the match is over, they should vote, and that the answer will show itself during the match. After that, we get to Ryu and Tokimitsu, who are trying to find people who would want to play against them. But as they are top 3, none of the others wants to go against them. They start to stress over when they will get to play. But Bachira then adds in that he didn't want to play against them either way, and that he was planning on waiting to go against Isagi's team when they've reached the 4th stage. Tokimitsu asks him what will happen if they don't advance, but Bachira says that they will before he asks where Rin is, and we then see Rin in the training room. After that, Bachira comes by and asks Rin to let him join in. Rin looks annoyed and says that he will only get in the way and to go away, but Bachira just walks closer to him and says that he started soccer to defeat his brother, right? Rin asks him, so what? And that he told him to leave. Bachira, however, tells him that it's the first time he has seen anyone seem lonely while playing soccer. Rin asks him if he's trying to start a fight, and Bachira then looks intense as he tells Rin to square up and that it will be lots of fun. We then get to 10 minutes before the Isagi and Chigiri game. Isagi is tying his shoelaces as he says that he can't afford to lose, and Nagi then tells him that they are leaving. Isagi gets up and says that in order to take back Bachira, they won't be stopped here. We then get to Kunigami, who asks Chigiri if heroes always feel this excited, and Chigiri asks if it isn't because he is teamed up with Chigiri and calls him an insensitive hero. Kunigami then smiles and says that they are going to win this, and Chigiri says, of course. And after that, both teams stare at each other intensely before the kickoff starts and the match is in full action. Isagi passes Baru and thinks that a chemical reaction with Baru will be the key to deciding this match. However, just then, we see Kunigami going to cover Baru, and he tells him that he will drag Baru off his throne. Baru just tells him to try it and smashes into his chest. Baru asks Kunigami if he thinks that he can stop him, but Kunigami suddenly backs off a bit, and Baru asks him what he is afraid of, but Kunigami tells him to come closer. Isagi, who is looking at this, is confused and wonders what Kunigami's plan is. Kunigami then says that it's impossible to stop Baru to 100% and that he will be pouring everything into stopping his shots. And Isagi then realizes that they know about Baru's weapon, the 27-meter extreme range middle shot, and that this man marking is specialized in not letting him get into that range. Thinking that they deemed it impossible to stop all of Baru's dribbling charges, so they'll not follow him, dribbles to the outer field, calling it a guard focused on blocking him from getting into middle shot range. Isagi says that it's an anti-Baru marking that makes use of Kunigami's physique. We then get to Kunigami, who says that he can only barely stop him after all. Anyway, Isagi then arrives by him and tells him to pass, telling Baru that they can get through with a 1-2, but Baru tells him to be silent and that he will get behind Kunigami by himself. Nagi says that Baru is seriously so self-centered and asks Isagi what to do. Isagi tells Nagi to back off and keep himself in the enemy line, and that he will compensate for Baru and somehow connect the path forward. But just then, Ryo comes by him and asks him what he can even do. Ryo tells him to brace himself, and he looks intense as he says that Nagi is a treasure he found and that with this match, he will steal him back from Isagi. Isagi just wonders what Ryo's problem is before telling him to go ahead and try. Isagi then once again screams out for Baru to pass and to use him, but just then Ryo charges towards Baru and says that of course the king won't pass. Kunigami says that Ryo is late, but Ryo says that Kunigami endured it well as he came by and stole away the ball from Baru. Baru looks super pissed. Meanwhile, Nagi just says that he told him so. After that, Ryo tells Kunigami to come, and he says that he is on his way. Isagi, looking at them coming towards him, is a bit amazed by their play just now, but he then snaps back and says that he has no choice but to stop them as he is the final line. He wonders if Ryo will come forward, or if he will pass to Kunigami. Isagi waits until the last moment to try and read Ryo's decision, and he sees Ryo passing, which is great. Isagi was heading to Kunigami. However, as he goes to Kunigami, he realizes that the ball is going above him, and that it's actually towards Chigiri. Chigiri compliments Ryo, but then Nagi comes by and says that he has caught up to Chigiri, but Chigiri tells him that he only caught up for 1 moment, and he then starts speeding up even more as he tells Nagi to get in his shadow as he runs above him. Nagi can almost not believe his eyes, but he says that Chigiri is way too fast. We also see Isagi on the side saying that their formation was completely destroyed. He looks at Chigiri running with the ball and says that the three of them understands each other's weapons, and by drawing out each other's abilities, they're surpassing Baru and Nagi, thinking that this is Chigiri's, Kunigami's, and Ryo's high-level tri-session. And just as he says that Chigiri scores the first goal of the match with little to no effort, they all look super happy. Meanwhile, Baru looks annoyed, and Nagi says that they are strong and calling them a flawless team. Then his eyes starts to light up and says that suddenly he started to heat up. We also see that it isn't only Nagi, as Isagi's eyes are also going crazy, as he says that suddenly he wants to crush them. Isagi looks at their team and says that they are all strong and that they have their offense and defense super balanced at a high level, calling them a team with no weaknesses, and yet he is shaking to test himself against them, finally realizing that this new Isagi has gotten stronger, and he then starts it off with the ball. He looks at the other team and thinks about blind spots and off-the-ball movements, thinking that he has combined these new pieces, and with his spatial recognition ability, he now has a whole new field vision. He tells himself to be aware of the line of sight of both teammates and enemies, more precisely than ever, and delicately, he can see each individual's play. He looks super ready as he says that the route to the goal that he couldn't see before, they are now overflowing endlessly. Isagi then makes his move as he passes to Baru. He then runs right by Ryo and tells him to look over at him, and as he does that, Isagi thinks that the movement of his center of gravity when he looks in his direction means Isagi will then push to the opposite. And now that Isagi has broken free from Ryo, he is totally open, and he looks to Baru and wishes for a pass, but Baru just ignores him and runs to Kunigami by himself. Kunigami just smirks and tells him that he is being way too greedy as he steals away the ball from Baru. Baru then falls to the floor, and Isagi is annoyed that Baru lost the ball again. Right then, Nagi screams to Isagi that they are going back and says that he will handle Chigiri if Isagi handles Reo. Isagi says that he already knows, but says that it's bad, as Kunigami is already in his range, and with no one left to guard him, he easily secures a goal for himself and gives his team a 2-goal lead. After that, Nagi goes to Baru and tells him to give it a rest, telling Baru that Isagi was completely free and asks him why he didn't pass. Baru tells him to be silent and asks him why he would pass for someone else to score. Nagi asks Baru if he is stupid and says that there's no point if they don't win. But Baru is still stubborn and says that it has to be with his goal and that Nagi and Isagi should be moving so that he can move more easily. Isagi then tells them to stop it and says that Baru might be totally at fault here, but that he will let it slide for now. After that, Isagi thinks to himself that Nagi and Baru don't mix together at all and that he has to control them. He has to input the new info and find an option that will let him create a chemical reaction with the three of them, telling himself to renew the vision inside of him and that he will lead this team. After that, the match restarts and Nagi passes the ball to Isagi. But Isagi quickly gets shocked as he sees that when he focuses on finding a vision that lets Baru score a goal, then the pass course towards Baru completely dies out. He knows that this is bad and that as things are now, a chemical reaction with Baru won't happen, but compared to that, the possibilities for goals come endlessly as he looks towards Nagi as he is moving in a way that lets him catch his movements. Isagi thinks that he has advanced to the level where he can feel and pick up on Nagi's off-the-ball movements, and he then passes a pass towards Nagi. Chigiri, however, sees that it's a fast pass and asks Nagi if he is trying to compete with him. But as the ball is coming closer, Nagi asks Chigiri if he knows that no matter how fast humans are, they aren't able to suddenly go backwards, and Nagi then pulls out this insane-looking trap. And even Isagi is stunned as he says that Nagi did it with a pass that came diagonally from behind and against Chigiri, who was coming at top speed. He trapped the ball in the opposite direction and created a shot course while leaving him behind. Isagi then looks happy as he says that it's a play that went beyond his vision and that this is the chemical reaction between Isagi and Nagi. And just like that, Nagi scores and both of them look super hyped up. Kunigami asks if Nagi got better than before, and Ryo just looks in pure amazement at this. Nagi then compliments Isagi's pass and says that for now, let's go ahead and win with just the two of them. And Isagi says, alright. But he thinks that with this, they are barely evenly matched, and what's left is the chemical reaction with Baru, and he is sure that if he can make that happen, then he can win this match. Isagi then goes forward to Baru and tells him that as things are now, he doesn't give off the scent of a goal, telling him to move by also thinking of him and Nagi's goals, and that he believes that they can blow life into each other's plays like that, telling him that he wants to make a chemical reaction that can't be done alone. However, Baru just stares at him and asks him how many times it will take for him to say this. But Baru lives with his own goals and says that he would rather die than play for the sake of someone else. Isagi, however, doesn't back down as he says that a pass to Isagi could lead to bringing forth a new option, which could result in Baru scoring. Baru, however, says that the word could isn't good enough and that he wins how he wants to win, and that everything outside that is out of the question. Isagi, however, tells him that they will lose if he is like that, but Baru says that he doesn't mind that at all, as it's better to lose than to win by bending his principles. Isagi then starts to scream, asking why he can't understand that his way of thinking is destroying his possibilities. He tells Baru that he is better than this, explaining that he teamed up with Baru because he thought that he could become an even better player, but Isagi tells him that at this rate he will disappear. This makes Baru mad as he asks him what he just said, telling him that he has all this skill and yet he can't win, and that obviously the most pissed off is himself. Isagi looks confused, but Baru just takes his hand in front of his head and tells Isagi that he sickens him, and explains that everything he tells Baru just sounds like he wants Baru to do as he says, continuing by saying that in the end, they are both egoists, and that they are beings that can only do things the way they want. Looking back angrily at Isagi and telling him not to think that he can control Baru, Isagi looks completely in shock, but Nagi then comes by and asks if he can't just go with that, telling him that there's no reason for him to rely on Baru and that the two of them can win. Isagi says that he is right and wonders why he is obsessing over Baru so much. He wonders if it is to win this match or if it is because he thinks it's a waste to see Baru being so impatient, wondering once again what he needs to do to make a chemical reaction with Baru happen. Anyway, back to Nagi, who says that he wonders how Baru can keep up his king talk even though he isn't being useful at all, saying that if you don't admit your loss, then you won't earn the real feeling of losing. And with that, the game is back on with Ryo being in control of the ball. Ryo goes to Isagi and says that there is something he doesn't understand, and he asks why Nagi chose someone like him who's only good for direct shots. Isagi just asks how he is supposed to know, and asks if Ryo even has some amazing ability. Ryo says that he doesn't have anything like Isagi, Kunigami, or Chigiri, and that he might not have a special weapon like that, which is why he is so determined to win this match, and he then leaves Isagi behind as he passes him. Isagi is in awe of that, and says that Ryo is good at changing the pace, and that he can't be stopped easily with basic abilities. Ryo spots both Chigiri and Kunigami near the box, and he passes the ball as he tells Isagi that by winning, he will deny Isagi. The ball goes to Kunigami, who alongside Ryo uses a 1-2 to get past Baru. Isagi, who is a bit behind, says that this is bad and that they are breaking apart, saying that when it comes to this team, Ryo is definitely the core, explaining that with Chigiri on the right and Kunigami on the left, and using their specialties well, then a utility player that carries the balance of offense and defense. He looks at Ryo and says that all of his parameters are top level, and says that his true essence is his all-rounder style with no shortcomings. After that, Ryo passes the ball to Chigiri, but right then, Nagi comes in front of him and tells him that he won't let him pass anymore. Chigiri just laughs and tells him not to lump him together with Baru, as he isn't all about just pushing through, as he sends a pass to the center. Isagi says that he has to stop it and that it's going in front of Ryo, but just then, someone comes screaming for everyone to move it, and it's none other than the hero Kunigami, who jumps up and heads the ball into the net. Isagi falls to the ground and asks if they are for real and that they are really strong, explaining that when they cooperate, their next moves could start coming from anywhere, and that against that perfectly balanced tri-session, they are in a situation where they lost an arm called Baru, and that they can't win. But then, the puzzles around Isagi starts to spin, and he says that he shouldn't just think of a way to win with just him and Nagi, as he can't come up with a vision of winning against them like that, as they will end up scoring 1 or 2 goals and end up losing anyway. He tells himself to think of a way to turn things around. But then, as he is on the ground, it clicks for him, as he knows that he can't make Baru one of them, but that he instead needs to devour him, and that the adaptation that happens on the field is not to match with others. He says that he was wrong, and that he thought that he would find the answer if he played while matching up to Baru. But that was just control of others, while expecting them to change. But that's not what it means to adapt, and that he isn't playing soccer to learn how to adjust to others, as he is here to win. And in order to win, he will change the way he uses his abilities, telling himself not to expect anything from Baru, and instead of breathing life into plays, he will focus on devouring Baru, and that he will be able to control the field. Isagi then looks super pumped as he tells Nagi that the two of them will win. Nagi asks him if he is finally seeing the light, and Isagi tells him to pay attention to Isagi, and just like that, they restart the game with Isagi having the ball. He knows that the score is 3-1, and that they can't let them have the next goal. However, he notices that they are all cautious about Nagi's movements. Since Chigiri can't stop Nagi by himself, Ryo is marking Isagi in a way to not let him pass Nagi, and even if he manages to, they're positioned as to be able to overwhelm him with numbers. Not to mention that Kunigami is clearly not too worried about Baru, and that you could also say that just doing that much is enough to stop him, as Baru is already useless when it comes to this match, which is the common belief everyone on the field has. But then, out of nowhere, Isagi starts to run towards Baru, and even Nagi is in shock. Baru tells him that it was a good decision. Meanwhile, Isagi just thinks to himself that Baru wants his pass. Kunigami also looks stressed, as he tells Baru that he won't let him go. But that's just what Isagi wants, as he wants Kunigami to get baited by Baru, as his real aim is Nagi, and as he is free he passes to Nagi. Ryo thinks that he got them as he dribbled, as if he was about to pass to Baru, but his aim was to lower their focus on Nagi and create a pass course to him. Just as the ball is coming to Nagi, Ryo screams at Chigiri not to jump, as that's what Nagi wants, so he doesn't jump, and Nagi gets annoyed by that. Ryo compliments Chigiri and tells him to now get the ball. Chigiri then gets a smirk as he tells Nagi that when he isn't moving, he is powerless. But just then, Baru comes on his side and screams at Nagi to pass him before he loses the ball. Nagi looks over, but sees Kunigami guarding him easily. Ryo thinks that they have got the whole team now, but Nagi then spots something, and he says that he sees, explaining that everyone is focusing on his play, and that he is in a space that only he can see, and that this is the moment where he bursts out of the darkness of their blind spot, which is what Isagi was waiting for, as we see him going behind Baru and using him. Nagi says that he sees it and passes over there. Kunigami then looks over and sees Isagi, and he is in shock as he says that in order for Isagi himself to get in front of the goal he used Baru as bait. Isagi's eyes then starts to light up as he thinks that no matter how much he tries to understand other people's hearts, people aren't able to change others. Which is why every time he has to change himself in order to change the world if nothing's going how you want it to. Thinking that if he can't see the light leading to a goal, then he has to become that light. He gets ready to strike the ball as he tells Baru to watch, as this is him adapting to Baru, and that the darkness that he created on the field, he will devour it and turn it into light. We then see Isagi scoring an awesome looking goal, and Baru looking to be in total despair. Isagi then screams out of happiness as he got his team their second goal, and everyone of Team Chigiri is stunned, and Ryo says that this is Isagi Yoichi, the egoist that Nagi was chasing. Nagi and Isagi then high-five each other, and Nagi says that it's time to catch up. Isagi says that he is right before he looks over to Baru and tells him to keep playing like always and not to drag them down. Baru is confused, but Isagi tells him not to get in their way, and then pulls out the slur like he always does, but this just leaves Baru looking at him stunned. After that, as Isagi leaves, Baru thinks that he was used. He gets angrier and says that he will slaughter Isagi and that he will for sure improve as he is the king of the field. And then the match was back on with Ryo having the ball but facing trouble right off the bat as Isagi goes to him. However, Ryo notices that something is different with Isagi, as his aura is different than before, and Ryo wonders just what Isagi can see. However, he thinks that as long as he doesn't know it's risky to match up against him from here on out, saying that both Chigiri and Kunigami also understands that, so they're being wary of this guy's movements and waiting for a pass, as right now the one to move forward shouldn't be Ryo, so instead he passes to Chigiri, who right away sends it to Kunigami on the other side, but just then, Baru barges forward on Kunigami's side and thinks that he has to get this ball. Kunigami says that it's rare for Baru to be this desperate, and then both of them jump up to meet with the ball, and the one who heads it first is Baru. Baru really looks desperate as he says that it's his ball. After that, Nagi comes on his side and tells him to pass, but Baru tells him to be silent and that he would never pass anyone. Kunigami just laughs and says that he should be listening to Nagi, as right then Ryo comes, and together with Kunigami, they double press Baru, which makes him lose the ball. However, fear not, as the ball rolls over on the grass and goes over to none other than Isagi. Everyone wonders why Isagi is there, and Ryo thinks that the moment Baru stole the ball, he predicted the loss of the ball and positioned himself accordingly. But just then, Chigiri comes and tells Isagi that he won't let him. Isagi sees him right away, and without any second of hesitation, he sends over the ball to Nagi. Chigiri can't even believe it as he wonders just how cool-headed Isagi is. Anyway, Nagi gets the ball and scores with ease. After that, both Nagi and Isagi look at each other, both looking ecstatic, and Nagi says that they are caught up as they are even. Team Chigiri, who are still a bit in shock, but they all say that right now this battlefield is being controlled by Isagi and Nagi. After that, the game gets back on with Ryo having the ball, but we then see Chigiri who says that at this rate they will lose, so if they just use their abilities, they will be read and stopped. Ryo can't do anything with the ball, so he sends it over to Chigiri, who thinks that just like Nagi said, his weakness is the moment of the trap. And after that, the man of the hour appears, as Nagi says that he already knows how he can stop Chigiri. Chigiri, however, is in his own brain, as he says that no matter how much speed he has, the moment you take the pass, you will slow down, and Nagi's aim is to stop his advance at that moment. But if that's the case, then it's do or die, as he traps the ball without slowing down, and instead just keeps on moving forward without stopping. Then, he will bounce it to where he is heading. Nagi is completely blown away, and Chigiri knows that he can do this while maintaining his top speed, and that he will let the ball run at the same speed. But just then, Baru comes from the side and tries to tackle down Chigiri, but Chigiri just tells him to try and stop him, as he isn't like Baru, as he will instead drag them to the world of top speed, calling it his new running, and saying that his new speed won't be controlled by Isagi and Nagi, and then he gets free and scores, which means that it's now 4-3. Nagi says that Chigiri went and evolved, and Isagi laughs, asking if this isn't awesome, and looks at Baru, who is crawling on the floor, asking if someone like that could ever become the #1 in the world, and this comment shocks everyone, but also greatly annoys Baru. We then get to his perspective as he wonders why he is on his knees, unable to steal even one goal, saying that he should be the king of the field, and we then get into his flashback where we learn that Baru was always the main actor on the field. In fact, he had so much talent that he could talk how he wanted, which we see here as he told his teammates to move for the sake of his goal, as when it came to soccer, he thought everyone besides himself was a supporting role. The other kids just praised him, and every time Baru heard that kind of praise from those around him, he thought, these guys are so happy even though they're supporting roles, and just said that he was the king. At this stage, Baru gave up on trying to understand others, and he became obsessed with just pursuing his own soccer, which worked as Baru became stronger, and at some point he noticed that the reason why he enjoyed soccer to this extent is not just to taste the feeling of being the king, and of course not because he loved to kick the ball either, as Baru simply wanted people like himself, and people who also bet their lives in soccer. He wanted to use his goals to drag these people off the seat of main actor, and he played soccer to feel that pleasure. This feeling is something that only the absolute strong can obtain the ultimate exclusive joy, and Baru could very well understand that. Nagi then says that they will lose if Team Chigiri scores another goal, and Isagi says that he is right, and that they will try and catch up, but just then, Baru rushes up from the ground and goes to kick the ball right from kickoff. Baru prays for it to go in. Meanwhile, Team Chigiri can't believe that Baru shot it from kickoff, but anyhow the ball hits the post, and Baru screams out of frustration. Ryo then screams at Kunigami to get the loose ball, and Kunigami is right on it. He even blocks of Nagi when he gets to the ball. However, Nagi is still giving him a bit of trouble, so Ryo comes by his side and tells him to pass, as they can't lose the ball in front of the goal. But as Kunigami passes the ball, Ryo can spot a wild Isagi running with all that he can towards it. Ryo is firstly in pure amazement to how he read that pass, but he then looks angry and tells Isagi not to underestimate him, and that things won't go his way any further as he kicks away the ball. Isagi is a bit annoyed, but everyone then screams that it's a stray ball again, but this time it's heading towards Baru. Baru looks super pumped as he says that it finally came, the chance to make him the main actor. He looks forward and says that right now his shooting zone is free, and if he can carry it 2 or 3 meters in on touch, he will be able to get to his range and score. But just then, Chigiri comes behind him and tells him that he is 1 step behind. Chigiri looks fired up as he tells Baru that he is faster than he is. Baru is in shock, and he knows that if he takes the time to touch the ball, then Chigiri will catch up, and he wonders just what he should do. He gets pissed as he looks crushed, and says that he is still 1 step behind. But just then, Isagi appears in front of him, and Isagi is in the perfect position as he signals Baru to pass. Baru gets a scared facial expression, before he, without even realizing it himself, had passed the ball to Isagi. Baru then fell down to the floor and looked at the ball which was going to Isagi, and at that moment he was forced to realize that the main actor on the field was none other than Isagi. Isagi then scores the goal, which brings them even, but then he turns around and tells Baru that the pass was decent, and tells him to move for the sake of his goal. Baru looks honestly scared as he looks at the fired up Isagi, and for the first time he felt the real feeling of losing. We then get into Baru's head as he says that he doesn't understand it himself, but that the ball was not passed but made to pass, and in that moment he says that he lost to Isagi. He thinks that he felt like what he had done to others so far had come back to him, and that Blue Lock's main actor was in fact Isagi, saying that soccer wasn't just a sport for him, as he wasn't the king in the end. We then get to Team Chigiri, where Chigiri says that Isagi is bad news. Kunigami says that whoever scores the next goal wins, and Ryo says that they can't let Isagi have the ball. But Kunigami says that in the last play, they are starting with the ball. Ryo puts his fist together and says that they need to score while absolutely not letting them steal the ball, and to think of losing the ball as losing the match. Chigiri says that if that's the case, then they should use his speed, and that his route has the highest chance of scoring a goal currently. They all agree, and Ryo says that they are betting on the last attack and that they will win for sure. We then get to Isagi and Nagi, where Isagi says that Team Chigiri is starting with the ball and that they need to steal it first. Nagi agrees, but says that Chigiri is bad news, and even if he is marking him properly, if they are lined up horizontally, he will simply burst past, and if he does that trap from before, then his speed won't fall either, and if he brings it to that, then they will lose for sure. Isagi's pieces then start to get active as he says that they need to stop him before that. Nagi asks him if he came up with something, but Isagi just says that he will go against Ryo, but Nagi then asks him to wait a bit, asking if they shouldn't share this with Baru, and with 3, it should be easier to guard, and if they steal the next one, it's over after all. Isagi is silent before saying that there's no point in telling a fallen king like that, and that the ending of the last play will be decided by him and Nagi alone, and Nagi says that he understands, and then the game is back on in full action. Ryo goes to Isagi, and Ryo notices right off the bat that Isagi is cautiously protecting the pass course to Chigiri more heavily than before, and that he's barely guarding them pass course to Kunigami, forcing Ryo to look to pass there. Ryo is annoyed and says that he wanted to use Chigiri's speed to advance forward, but that he has no choice as their attack is being completely read. So instead, he passes to Kunigami. Kunigami gets the ball, but also wonders what they should do. He thinks that a careless pass is too dangerous, and that at least he definitely can't let the ball be stolen. But he will never be able to go past Baru with his own skills, and he says that the risk is too big. So he passes the ball back to Ryo. He thinks that it's no good, but then he switches up and asks himself what he's thinking about, and that he will beat Isagi, and that the road to Chigiri, he will open it in a one-on-one. Ryo tries to draw Isagi closer and says that he just needs to open up the path for just a moment, and just then he sees it, the path to Chigiri. So he screams at Chigiri to run as he passes to him and thinks that he has won over Isagi. Chigiri starts running and tells them to leave it to him, but just then, something weird happens as Nagi starts to run in the opposite direction towards Ryo's pass. Ryo, who fell to the floor, looks sad and thinks that this can't happen. He says that Nagi knew that he couldn't win against Chigiri, and that he was betting on going midway and stealing it directly. After that, Isagi speaks up and compliments Ryo's pass and tells him that they were waiting on this. Ryo is in awe and wonders if this whole situation was in Isagi's mind, but he still believes that if Nagi can't reach it, then the ball will go over to Chigiri, and then it's game over. Isagi's eyes flare up as he tells Nagi to reach it, and just in the final moment, he manages to just in time reach the ball. The ball then flies high into the sky, and Ryo screams that the ball is stray, but then, to everyone's shock, it lands in front of Baru, and Isagi comes by him and tells him to go. Baru thinks that he can understand that the field is shining for the sake of Isagi's goal, but he doesn't feel any frustration. Is it maybe because he isn't the main actor anymore? Suddenly, Nagi comes on his right side and tells him that he is also here, but Chigiri then tells them to wait up as he is also here, telling Nagi that he isn't getting away. We then get back to Baru, who says that he is feeling this for the first time and that these two are showing him a vision for the goal, thinking that if he acts as a supporting role now and passes, then they will win and he can become a piece of the coming goal. But the way he is right now, both Nagi and Isagi are way too bright, and Baru then understands that it's how the others must have been feeling, and that he can be saved by this sense of defeat, and that he will be saved from this feeling of losing if he entrusts the goal to an absolute striker. They can win with his pass, and wonders if this is how a team is, and if this is the so-called chemical reaction, calling it the true purpose for a loser in a supporting role. But just as he is about to pass, he feels something holding him back, and he stopped his motion. He thinks that this is a crossroad and that there is no reason for this. But if he passes here, then his intuition is telling him that everything will end. Wonder what his future is beyond this pass. But he then realizes it, as it's nothing but escapism for people with broken dreams. For the sake of not denying their lives so far, he then sees his future, where he is sitting in his room drinking beer while watching Isagi playing for Japan, and he says that this is the excuse of the losers, and that a future like that isn't something that he wants to live through. We then get back into the game, where he does a chop feint to get behind Kunigami. Everyone is wondering what Baru will decide to do, and Ryo says that if he passes to Isagi, it's over, but he wonders if he will try to dribble past him and charge in. He looks closely at his feet before saying that the motion is here and goes to try and stop Baru, but just then, Ryo gets hit with one of his chop feints, and Ryo says that this time he used Isagi as the bait, and he wonders if Baru is experiencing an awakening at this point in the game. After that, Kunigami screams at Chigiri that Baru won't pass anymore, but we then get to Baru, who says that he sees it, saying that he knows because he knows how defeat feels, and that this isn't a route to entrust the main actor, and that even if uncertain, this still exists for the sake of his goal. After that, Baru gets behind Isagi and uses him as bait to hide his next action, and Baru says that this time it's his turn to devour Isagi, which he does, as thanks to Isagi, he gets behind Chigiri, and Isagi is looking at this in shock, saying that Baru's awakening is climbing by devouring each other, and that this is the chemical reaction between Baru, Nagi, and Isagi. Baru is then going towards the goal at an insane speed as he screams that he won't end up as a supporting role, and if Isagi and Nagi are the main actors, then he will devour that light and be the villain if he has to. And just then, he lets out his shot, which Isagi calls amazing, and Nagi welcomes back the king as we see the shot curving right into the top corner of the goal, and with that, giving Team Isagi the win, and Baru ends it by screaming out of happiness as he once again becomes the true king. Isagi then, right away rushes to congratulate Baru. However, Baru just grabs him by his shirt and screams at Isagi to take it back and asks if he is a loser. Isagi apologizes and says that he was wrong and that Baru is an amazing person after all. Baru says that he is making it hard to stay mad, but just then, Nagi jumps on Baru's back, which makes the three of them fall down. Baru tells him to get off him, but Nagi says that for real, that shot was amazing. Baru likes the praise, but says that he just came up with it, and Isagi asks him how and to tell them about himself. Baru says that so far, he thought this battlefield was just his and only his, and that he thought there was only him, but Nagi and Isagi, for the first time in his life, stole the leading role of the field from him, which is why, in order to survive in Blue Lock, he found a way to take control of the battlefield as the villain, and that's how it was. Nagi says that the opponent was ridiculously strong too, and that he probably couldn't have felt it with weak opponents. Baru says that it's true. Isagi just smiles and says that Baru is amazing after all. Baru says not really, and that it's just that even if he becomes a villain, as the king of the field, it's his dream to become the best striker in the world, and that he will never lose to Isagi ever again, and Isagi once again just smiles. Nagi then says that it was the first time he called Isagi his real name. Baru tells him that he doesn't remember stuff like that, and Nagi then asks Baru to also call him his real name, but Baru tells him to be silent. Anyway, he starts to walk away, and Nagi and Isagi, left on the ground, fist bump each other and say, "Nice game." After that, we get to Henri, who says a chop dribble past 3 players and that precise shot to the upper right corner. Just looking at those techniques, he's already among the best in Japan, and she calls it amazing. She then looks over to Ego and asks if Baru's awakening was planned, but Ego says not really, and that it was his pure talent. Henri is shocked, but Ego tells her to listen, and he tells her that losing, a phenomena that unavoidably occurs in the world of matches, even for the world's best strikers. Winning every match is impossible, saying that what's important is what you earn from losing, saying that the ones who lose are denied from the field, and those fighting a bigger despair than that doesn't exist. Yet many normies do not properly engrave this despair. While claiming that they lack talent, they deny that they were powerless because it's scary to admit failure. They make excuses subconsciously, as if to not waste their hard work thus far to not give up is the correct answer. That's why they make themselves delusionally believe, and Ego calls it dreams doping. The dream that was supposed to come true will then exist just for the sake of being chased, and people like that who become ghosts of their own broken dreams while fooling themselves don't interest him even 1 millimeter, saying that there's no point if a dream isn't there to make it come true, which is why failure is the crossroads to the dream, and what's important in that moment is the strength to feel pain at your own powerlessness and the talent to despair, telling Henri that the path she saw that led to one's dream, only by giving up on it you will be shown a new path, and that becomes one's new possibility, explaining that humans who still try to fight even when they despair only in those does the power to make dreams comes true. And he then tells the losers, which is Team Chigiri, that it's time for their crossroads. We then see Chigiri saying that they were just 1 pass short, and if that pass had gone through, he would have scored. Kunigami looks at him, while thinking that he couldn't help against them, and that he couldn't do anything against those guys when they got serious, calling it the reality. We then have Ryo in the back just looking super sad, but we then leave them and go to Nagi, who asks what they should do, and Baru says that they need to choose. Isagi says that they are right, and all of them look over, wondering which one they will pick. Baru says that after all he wants Kunigami, and that with his physique, they can keep the ball by having him as a post player, and if he joins, then they can fill the front lines more, which would help Baru score more goals. However, Nagi says that Ryo is better in that case, saying that as an anchor, they could have him fill the rear, and most importantly, he would balance out their offense and defense, and he would be the best pick for the 3 of them to be able to move freely. Baru says that he guesses that it would work, but then Isagi joins the conversation as he says that it would indeed stabilize their team, but that it is something that would destroy their own possibilities, and he says that it would be suicide. The others look at him confused, but Isagi tells them to remember that the key to clearing the second selection is chemical reactions, and that they are still here because they were able to pull that off live during matches. Isagi devoured Baru, and Baru devoured him back, saying that none of them would have been able to even imagine playing like that, and it's that unpredictability itself that makes their soccer. Isagi's eyes then light up as he says that he wants an asset that's going to devour them, and without someone like that, then he is sure that they can't beat the top 3. Baru says that it's a gamble, but that it makes sense. Nagi agrees, but says that there was only one who kept biting on their back, and the only one who could mix into this chemical reaction and not disappear is none other than Chigiri. All of Team Chigiri look to be in total awe, but Isagi tells him that his legs are needed and he starts to leave. But as he is leaving, he tells Kunigami not to forget that they still haven't won against Isagi, and that he will be holding on to the same frustration and waiting up there. After that, Nagi goes to Ryo and says that the last play was only possible because Ryo was there. Because of his excellent abilities, they were able to gamble, calling it a very close one, and that Ryo is amazing after all, which is why he's going on ahead. But Ryo then cuts him off and says that if that's true, then he should have picked him, and that he doesn't need Nagi's words of comfort, and to instead just say clearly that he doesn't care about Ryo at all anymore. Ryo looks furious as he says that Nagi has gone off and changed into a person who's forgotten the promise with Ryo to become the best in the world, telling Nagi that if he is abandoning him, then do it properly. Nagi is silent before he asks Ryo if he would be satisfied if he chose Ryo here and became a team, even if it doesn't feel exciting, and asks him if becoming the best in the world is such a simple thing. Telling Ryo that the one who's forgotten their promise is Ryo himself, Nagi then says whatever, and that he has had enough and calls Ryo a pain as he walks away, telling him that he doesn't care anymore, and Ryo looks crushed to the max. But before they leave, Isagi then calls out to Ryo and tells him that he shouldn't aim to be the one that gets chosen, but the one that chooses, asking Ryo what he is even playing football for, and saying that only people who will become the best strikers in the world can survive in Blue Lock. Ryo then looks down to the ground and starts to cry, but that's when Kunigami grabs him up and tells him not to look down, as if he looks away. Then it's the end of them, and they then watch the others leave. After that, we see Bachira and Rin going at it, and Bachira says that Rin is good and asks if he's getting serious now. Rin just tells him to be silent, and that for someone who's provoking, he's sure lukewarm. Bachira smiles and asks if it isn't fun. Rin just sighs and says that a dribble like that, which is so reliant on instinct, won't work on Rin. Bachira says that the chances are 50-50, as you never know until you try. But Rin says that he knows, as Bachira's dribble looks like he's having fun, but saying that he is afraid of fighting alone, which is not good, telling Bachira that his lukewarm ego won't make Rin's heart dance. After that, we get to Isagi's room, where he says that he wasn't able to confirm, but if Rin and the others are here, they will pick them for the next match, right? However, no one responds, and Isagi basically gives up. But after that, Baru asks whose socks are on the floor, and after that, it turns into a total fight as Baru tries to clean everything while blaming the others. To break it up, Isagi asks if they should head out and go eat, but Nagi and Chigiri refuse. Meanwhile, Baru says that he is going, but tells Chigiri and Nagi that until he is back, they better have all of their stuff sorted. After that, Baru and Isagi go to the cafeteria. It's kind of awkward between the two of them, as no one is speaking, and Isagi wonders if Baru is mad about everything he said in their previous match. But he then calls out for Isagi and asks him just what it is that Isagi sees when he is on the field and what the soccer that he wants to play is. Isagi is kind of caught off guard as he says that, for Baru to ask something like that, he's changed somewhat. Isagi says that his weapons are special awareness and his direct shot, and with his off-the-ball movement, he has everything he uses to position himself. Baru asks if he means that he is controlling the field with all of that, and that he should have told him sooner. But Isagi says that he tried to tell him sooner and that he just didn't want to listen. After that, Isagi says that even if it was for the sake of winning, he is sure that he said too much on the field towards him, and he apologizes about that. Baru just says that he got him to take it back, and other than that, Isagi was just being correct. Isagi is shocked, but Baru says that he was immature and that's all there is to it, saying that he isn't chicken enough to not change after knowing pain, and that the him that has died once and crawled back up is strong. After that, Baru once again asks Isagi what kind of soccer he wants to play in this team, but Isagi just thanks him and says that he likes how he is right now. However, Baru says that he hates it, and besides, the reason he is trying to know Isagi better is so that he can devour his talent and completely beat him to a pulp. Isagi tells him to just try it, and that he will tell Baru about himself and even evolve twice as fast as Baru himself. But Baru calls it naive and says that he will evolve 3 times as fast and that he won't just devour Isagi, but also Nagi and Chigiri. After that, we get to them and see Chigiri saying that he guesses that he will try and tidy up, but he then gets distracted and asks what Nagi is watching. Nagi says that he is watching a World Soccer Super Plays compilation and that he wanted to study some trapping. He then asks Chigiri who a specific player is, and Chigiri says that it's Noel Noah. Nagi just asks who that is, and Chigiri says that it's the best player in the world and is shocked that Nagi knows nothing about football, but that he is still super good and calls him a cheater. Nagi thanks him before asking if his leg is wounded or something. Chigiri says that his right leg is a ticking bomb. Nagi is amazed and asks if it hurts, but Chigiri says that it's fine now, but if it breaks again, then it will be pretty bad. However, he says that he has no regrets and that he is running one day at a time with that resolve. Nagi calls it cool, and Chigiri says that before becoming number one in the world, he has a mountain of people he needs to beat after all. After that, we get back to Isagi and Baru, and Isagi thinks that he wonders how many possibilities the four of them have, the reborn Baru, Nagi, Chigiri, and himself, and just what kind of soccer they will play, and he is super excited to be fighting Rin soon. Anyway, they then get to the door, and Baru says that they better have tidied up a bit, but as he goes in, he sees that it's even more of a mess, and he screams at them before it all turns into a brawl. After that, we get into a young Bachira, who we can see holding a football, and the text saying that he loved soccer. From morning to evening, he spent all his time kicking the ball, and whenever he played with other kids, he was of course the best among them. Notably, he loved dribbling, and sometimes he'd feel great and as if he and the ball had become one and the same. And when that happened, he became incredibly fast and strong, thinking that there is nothing in this world that's more fun than this, which was what Bachira strongly believed. After he had styled on all of his friends and scored, he quickly asked to play one more game, but the other kids said that Bachira was too good and that it was boring to go against him, and another one said that they would go home and play video games. Bachira is surprised and asks them why. He tells them that they just have to become one with the ball as well, and then they will all be strong, saying that there is nothing more fun than playing soccer. After that, the other kids actually starts being pretty mean to him and calling him dumb stuff. But just when they are about to leave, that's when Bachira gives them what they deserve, as he jumps on top of one of them and starts beating him, screaming that he isn't weird, and then all three gang up on him. We then see him with his mom, who tells him that he isn't weird. Bachira agrees and says that they are all wrong. However, his mom says that they're not exactly wrong, and that fighting is bad, but the things that Bachira feels these kids probably can't feel them at all. Bachira then asks him what he should do then, and that he just wants to play soccer with someone. His mother laughs and says that it's a wonderful thing to have something you believe in, and he just needs to keep believing like that, as when people become adults, they stop believing even when they don't want to, and while they are pretending to not hear it, they actually become unable to hear their own voice, explaining that the thing that he is trying to believe is something fleeting yet precious, calling it the voice of a monster that lives in his heart. His mother continues and says that she has always believed in that voice, and we then learn that Bachira loved his mother's paintings only second to soccer. After that, we see him on the pitch thinking about what kind of monster he has inside him, and that this happiness that only he can feel, he will, without a doubt, believe in this feeling, and because of that, Bachira started to play soccer with the monster. We see Bachira laughing while he plays with his monster. Meanwhile, the others just look at him and call him weird. We then see their football coach, who says that what's most important is the spirit of the team and that everyone is fighting together for the same victory. The other were ecstatic as they heard that. Meanwhile, Bachira just looked at the sky. The text then says that as he became a little bigger, some people became good at soccer, but even still, Bachira was always the best among them. We then see him in a match, and one of his teammates are calling for a pass. However, as Bachira looks at him, he says that the place that he is in is no fun, and that he is 3 steps behind, thinking that if it were the monster, they'd do a super special play. And as he thinks like that, he passes to a place where the monster would be, and accidentally missing his teammate. His coach got mad at him. However, he just thought that the fun that he felt, there must exist other people who also feel it. He looks at a highlight reel of Noah and says that since these strikers inside the screen all could play just like the monster, and one day he would want to play soccer like that, and that someday he wants to meet someone who can understand this fun from the bottom of their hearts. After that, we once again see Bachira in a game, but the same thing happens. His teammate calls out for him, but he isn't where the monster is, so Bachira waited for him to go there. But in turn, Bachira lost the ball, and on the ground he thought that everyone else had stopped hearing the monster's voice, and at some point everyone stopped believing. But we then see the monster putting out his hand for Bachira, and the text says that Bachira always kept believing in the fun of soccer, but the truth is that he gets scared. What if things stay like this and nobody ever understands him? What if he has to play soccer alone forever? And when Bachira thought like that, he felt so lonely that he could die. After that, he went home, and his mother asked him if he was fine, and he said that he was fine, but that he was just tired. She then told him that he had gotten a letter, and it was the infamous blue lock letter, which got him a bit excited. After that, we get into one of his dreams, where his mother tells him that the monster is an imaginary friend. Bachira once again then asks his mother if he is weird, but she tells him that he isn't, and that this monster is someone who exists so he can play soccer with. He says that it's true, but that he wants a real friend who can play soccer with him. His mother smiles and says that it would be nice if he found someone like that, and Bachira agrees and says that he will believe, but until then, the monster will stay with him. And after that, in his dream, Noah, Messi, Ronaldo, and even Zico comes forward and plays with Bachira. But we then get into Blue Lock where we see him sleeping on the floor, and he woke up in the middle of the game of tag and that it was time for the fighting in Blue Lock to start. However, Bachira was so sleepy still, and he wonders if this was because he didn't sleep yesterday, as he was too excited. But as the rat Igarashi tried to take him out, he started to feel excited as he kicked him in the face. Because surely in Blue Lock, there's people playing all kinds of soccer, and among these people, there must be someone who's the same as the monster. Thinking that this place where he can get serious playing soccer is like heaven, we then get to when Igarashi was injured, and Kira screamed at Isagi to take the shot. Bachira looked at this, and said that there was one thing that Bachira was afraid of, which was what if even here there weren't anyone on par with the monster? What if even here there wasn't anyone who could understand him? And if that was the case, he would be so lonely that he could die. But he then saw that Isagi didn't take the shot, and Bachira instead took the ball from him and went for Kira, thinking that he doesn't want to be alone anymore. So even if he is a little scared, and even if he will be sad that he failed, I will believe. He then sends up the ball right to where the monster would be, and thinks that he has been longing for this for so long, and that he has been searching for it, and even chasing for it, as if there would be a monster. Then he would be there, which is right where Isagi was standing, and Bachira's eyes lit up as he saw this, because Bachira felt like he was being told to pass to Isagi, and that he also had a monster inside him, which is why Bachira strongly believes in Isagi. We then get to real time where he thinks that since then, the only one who understood his soccer the most, and who could feel the same joy, was Isagi, and of course that hasn't changed. But even then, he calls out for Rin, and he has big eyes as he asks Rin if he also has a monster inside of him. Rin is confused and asks him what he's on about, but Bachira explains that he doesn't mean a real monster, but like an image of the soccer that he wants to happen, and that he thinks that every amazing player has one. Rin just says that he has no clue, and that it's because Bachira is being controlled by that childish nonsense that his soccer is so lukewarm, telling him to go play soccer with that monster for all his life, while Rin becomes the #1 in the world. Bachira is stunned, but thinks that Rin might have a kind of monster that Bachira doesn't understand yet, and which is different from Isagi's. Anyway, as they leave and walk outside, we see Isagi standing against the wall, and he says that he has been looking for Bachira. Bachira looks happy, and Isagi says that he is here as they promised, and that he is here to steal him back. And Isagi's eyes light up as he tells Rin to fight, and Bachira wonders which one out of Isagi and Rin will make his heart dance the most. After that, we get to 20 hours until the match, where we see Isagi showing the others which formation he believes that they will go with. He says that he will face Rin in the center. After that, they will make use of Chigiri's speed on the right, and Nagi will go left. Meanwhile, Baru will be in position to devour the three in front of him as he wishes, and everyone is fine with that. Isagi then looks super pumped as he says that if they win this match, then they will clear the second selection, and he tells them to hit them with all that they have got. We then get to the others, where Tokimitsu says that it's thanks to Bachira that the team's actually looking like a team, and thanks him. After that, both he and Ryu ask for some passes. Bachira says that he's got them, while Rin just tells them to go and finish this already so that they can move on, telling them that it will be over in an instant. And after that, both of the teams start to walk out towards the field. Bachira looks super excited as he says that it's about to begin, but suddenly Ryu's eyes light up, and he walks towards them in a menacing way. And he walks right towards Chigiri before he grabs his hair and asks him what type of hair treatment he uses. Chigiri is a bit weirded out, but says that he uses whatever they have got, and Ryu is amazed by this and calls it all natural. Chigiri then starts to get annoyed and tells him to quit touching his hair. Ryu apologizes, but says that it was just so beautiful before he says that he is honored to face someone with such style and that he is looking forward to their match. Chigiri and Ryu then shake hands, and Chigiri says that despite how he looks, he's got a quite old-fashioned name, and he wishes for a good match. But just as he says that, Ryu breaks out in an outrage and tells him to stop it, telling him that his name is his one unstylish point, and calling it his one and only complex. After that, he starts to style to get his aura up again, and Chigiri runs to Isagi and asks what his problem is. Tokimitsu then goes to Ryu and tells him to stop it, as he will get tired out before the match even starts. They go a bit back and forth before Baru screams at them and tells them to go into their positions and get started already. Tokimitsu apologizes before he asks if they can postpone this, as Ryu is unable to move. This only gets Baru even angrier as he tells Tokimitsu that he will kill him. After that, Tokimitsu also starts to freak out, and he goes on and on about knowing nothing of their pain, which makes Baru snap even more, and he tells Isagi that they are changing positions and that he will go against this spineless guy. and he asks Tokimitsu if he thinks that Baru doesn't know what failure feels like. Tokimitsu calls him scary, but as Baru tries to lift him up, he realizes that he is unable to, as Tokimitsu doesn't even budge. Anyway, back to Isagi, who says, "Alright," and he then looks over to Nagi and asks him if he would mind switching with Baru. Nagi thinks for a bit, and thinks back to Ryo's words before apologizing and saying that he will be selfish here, explaining that unless he is facing someone who can get his pulse racing, there will be no point in having left Ryo, and that he will duke it out with Rin over there. Isagi just looks at Nagi a bit in shock, but Nagi says that he wants to get stronger. Isagi then says alright, but warns him that if he loses, then he will be stepping in to crush him. After that, he looks fired up as he looks at Bachira and says that it's him against him. And with that, the final showdown is about to start. And Isagi stretches as he says that finally the time has come to put everything on the line, to give it everything he has got, and says that the victor will be him, as the match starts with Rin kicking the ball to Bachira, who is right away faced with Isagi. But this time Bachira is fired up as he says that he will start off with a max speed scissor feint. Isagi is closely analyzing it, and Bachira just wishes him good luck on stealing it. Bachira then goes into a straight, sharp turn, but he is left in shock as he sees that Isagi is seriously keeping up. He thinks that he should have been able to lose Isagi with this, and he wonders just what is going on. He then looks at Isagi closely, and sees him glaring around on the field, which makes Bachira realize that Isagi is using his awareness of the entire field in order to posture himself, thinking that instead of getting hung up on the one-on-one against Bachira, he's defending based on which side of the field he doesn't want him to go, as right now, Nagi's covering his left flank, which means that even if he manages to get past him, they can recover, but since there's nobody to his right, if he passed him there, he could score a free goal, and that he is facing him with the understanding of that critical hole in their defense. Thinking that his ability to instantly grasp the situation has gone up a level, and Bachira says that it looks like his eyes has evolved, Isagi just smirks and asks Bachira if he can't get past him. But Bachira then thinks that if that's the case, then he will just attack in Nagi's direction. But we then see Baru coming over and telling Bachira to hand it over. This only leaves him more shocked, as he wonders if Baru predicted that Bachira would come this way, and then surrounded him. After that, Tokimitsu comes and tells him to pass it back for now, and as he is struggling with Baru, he has no choice. But as he sends the pass towards Tokimitsu, Isagi instead comes between them and steals the ball, and he coldly just says, "Thanks for the pass." Baru then screams out in frustration and tells Bachira to get out of his way. Bachira is honestly so confused right now, as he wonders if they weren't working together and that they are actually both using each other and devouring the other in order to take possession of the ball, calling them an anti-combo and saying that he has never seen this before. Anyway, after that we see Nagi rushing up towards the field, and he tells Isagi to send it his way nice and easy. Isagi says that he knows and sends a flawless cross. However, as the ball is coming closer, he spots Rin ahead of him. Nagi thinks that Rin is waiting for him to trap the ball instead of rushing in, thinking that this kind of spacing is what makes this guy so hard to handle, as even if he keeps pressing onwards without pausing, this distance means that he can't just burst past him, but if he stops, then he will close the distance in a flash, calling his spacing perfect, and wondering if, from just that one match earlier, Rin can now read Nagi to this extent. However, Nagi knows that he has to do something unexpected, so he jumps up and kicks away the ball with the outer part of his shoe, which we see leaves Rin shocked. Nagi then asks if he can feel it and calls for the Red Panther, who we see is coming in full speed as he says that it's his. But just then, Aryu comes on his side and calls it a stylish pass, and not only him, but also Rin is on his way. Chigiri very well knows this, and thinks that gauging Aryu and Rin's distance and himself at full speed, that split second before everything intersects, that coordination, and this instant is his one and only chance at breaking through, and we see Chigiri leaping with the ball over both of their legs. Bachira looks at this and is just in shock as he wonders what is up with them. He says that Isagi's and Baru's anti-combo that resulted in that steal. Then immediately afterwards, the way Isagi and Nagi instantly saw what the other was seeing, followed by Nagi's response and turning that perfect trap into that decisive pass, and at its culmination, answering the call is Chigiri's leg, thinking that this is what they have evolved in order to beat them, and calling it a seamless chain of chemical reactions. A full Isagi, Baru, Nagi, and Chigiri chemical reaction. Anyway, as he says that, we see Chigiri just being an absolute beast as he scores the goal with ease and gives Team Isagi their first goal. But we also see Bachira starting to smirk as he says that he has been waiting for this and says that the monster is rejoicing. Isagi thinks that there are over 35 meters to the goalpost, and that at this distance even Rin shouldn't be able to shoot in a goal. But still, there's no way that the top 3 will let it end like this. But even so, Isagi will keep attacking so that they don't even have time to catch their breath, as after all, they are the challengers here. And with that, the game is back on. Bachira starts off with the ball again, and he tells Isagi to go, and that it won't go like last time. Bachira then quickly takes a glance towards Baru, and Isagi sees that and says that even with him looking at Baru, his dribbling is flawless, and that it will be impossible to straight up steal from Bachira. Suddenly Aryu comes running on his side, and Isagi wonders if Bachira will pass him. However, he thinks that it's fine as Nagi is behind him, and also Chigiri is marking him, thinking that the worst case scenario will be if he gets past Isagi, but that it's okay as long as he can block him. After that, Baru comes charging towards him and Bachira stops dribbling, which makes Isagi think that he can now steal the ball. But just then, Bachira puts out his tongue and makes a back heel pass, without even looking. The ball is headed for Aryu, and Baru screams at Chigiri to get in front of it, but Aryu uses his long legs to intercept it mid-air. Chigiri even says that his reach should be illegal, but Aryu tells him that the airspace is his territory, and that all he has to do is pass before Chigiri can catch up, which is exactly what he does, as he sends a pass to Tokimitsu, who is in a fierce battle with Baru. They are really going back and forth in a battle of strength, but Baru is quickly losing as he thinks that he can't even move Tokimitsu. After that, Tokimitsu gets to the ball and makes a fast pass to the incoming Rin, and everyone knows that they are in trouble, as this is Rin's shooting range, but Nagi says that he is here and that he won't let him shoot. Isagi then screams out for him, but Nagi is too focused on Rin and asks if he will still force a shot. Isagi firstly thinks that Nagi has got him, but then he opens his eyes some more and thinks that Rin will hit him with a feint, which is exactly what he does. Isagi thinks that Rin let Nagi outread him and then lured him into it, calling Rin a cut above, but while he is slowed down, Isagi knows that he can catch up. And it's not only as Isagi as Chigiri comes on his side and says that the two of them will surround him, he is firstly happy that they have the advantage. But just then, Bachira appears on the left side, and it has now turned into a 2 versus 2, which makes them wonder if Rin will pass or dribble. But Rin then quickly goes into a shooting stance, and Chigiri thinks that he will intercept it, but Isagi knows that something is up, as he thinks that it must be another feint, which once again he reads flawlessly, but Chigiri unfortunately isn't on the same wavelength and gets hit with it. Isagi thinks that Rin is taking advantage of the time it took for them to process how to counter the 2 versus 2 situation. Isagi knows that this is bad, and that everyone is just dancing into Rin's hands, and he says that even without a chemical reaction, just by himself, he's a monster with countless possibilities in his arsenal, calling him a class of his own. After that, Isagi screams and thinks that even if he has to foul, he will stop Rin. But Rin is just calm like always and says that it looks like Isagi has been studying on how to use his eyes, but that lukewarm soccer of his won't make Rin's heart dance. And after that, Rin gets above him and scores his team's first goal, and everyone is left wondering how in the world they are supposed to stop something like that. But Isagi, who is in his own head, thinks that even though he couldn't stop Rin here, he is for sure getting closer, and that in their previous match, he couldn't even understand why they lost, but now he can understand the meaning behind all of Rin's movements, and Isagi knows that if he can devour him, then he can for sure win. He orders his brain to work overtime, and to think of what he can do to overtake Rin, and to seize control of the field. Chigiri then says that you can't be serious, and asks how Rin is that good. Nagi also apologizes, and says that he couldn't do anything either, but he asks Isagi how he can play like that, and wonders if he is just wired differently from the rest of them. However, Isagi says that it makes sense to how Rin got past them, explaining that in that play just now, Rin was constantly positioning himself in a range from where he could shoot the ball, which is why, no matter what they did, they were always one step behind, saying that he reads several steps ahead of the game, and while they are still processing the situation, he lures them in, and that it's the core of his playstyle. Nagi says that he can't keep up with that, but Chigiri says that the fact that Isagi can explain Rin's play in an instant like that makes him kinda amazing too. This makes Isagi understand that this isn't something that everyone can understand right away, and he wonders if that means that now on this field, the only one who can keep up with Rin's way of thinking is himself. Then the only thing that can stop Rin is Isagi's eyes and brain. Anyway, they then get fired up and says that it's their counter, and the kickoff begins with Nagi passing Chigiri, who goes up against Aryu right away. Isagi looks at this and says that they are starting their offense with Chigiri on their right against Aryu's long reach. It will come down to getting around him or passing the ball. However, Rin's positioned himself in the perfect spot to respond to whichever Chigiri decides. But in that case, Nagi is wide open, as Bachira can't mark him and Nagi on his own. Chigiri then glances towards Nagi, and Isagi thinks that it's coming, saying that while everyone's got their eyes on Nagi in this instant, he will bypass them in their blind spot. And just then, Chigiri sees him and sends away a flawless cross towards Isagi. But just as the ball is about to land, Rin comes in front and steals it away. Isagi is in pure awe, thinking that Rin perfectly predicted his approach, but he says that he was able to get past Nagi and Bachira and that their view of the field should be the same, thinking that it's just that Rin's able to predict the situation one step faster than him, which makes Isagi realize that he is still one step behind. But as Rin is sprinting with the ball, both Baru and Nagi comes in front of him. But this doesn't annoy Rin at all as he simply passes to Bachira, which even leaves Bachira surprised, but Rin tells him to bring the ball to the goal, and he looks pumped up as he says that he will. Isagi then screams that they are countering, and Bachira thinks that Isagi is really amazing, and that he has come to the point where he can actually compete with Rin, but Bachira knows that he can also do more. Isagi then goes to him and tries to block him, but that's when Bachira sends a cross right past him. Now who is the pass going to? Well, it's none other than the tall giant Aryu, who calls the spin on the pass beautiful. But it's far from over, as Chigiri is right by him, and tells Aryu that he is going down. Not to mention that Nagi is also a bit ahead. All of this combined makes Isagi sure that this pass won't succeed, but Bachira then speaks up and tells Aryu that he better noticed it, and to not think of this pass as a point as a line. And as Aryu looks at it, he sees exactly what Bachira is going on about. He knows that it's a parabola, which is warning him that if he waits until it lands, then they will lose possession, which is why he will change up his tactic, and instead jump to the point in midair, which only he can reach. Everyone looks at this in shock. Meanwhile, Aryu says that he is dancing, as this is Bachira's and Aryu's chemical reaction, and Aryu heads the ball into the ground, which bounces into the net. Isagi then looks frozen in place as he says that he thought that they could win if they just stopped Rin. However, Bachira is rapidly changing the flow of the game, which makes Isagi realize that this is truly the ultimate showdown. Anyway, with Aryu's goal, it's now 2-1, and Aryu thanks Bachira for his pass. Meanwhile, Isagi at the bottom just starts to look more and more ready to give it his all, but it's far from only Isagi who is feeling it, as we also see Nagi looking super ecstatic as he says that this match is amazing, thinking that Isagi and Rin are trading blows and competing for control over the field. And even though it was already taking everything they had to handle Rin on his own, Bachira is now sparking a chemical reaction with the top three. Nagi says that they are not just flexing on their own anymore, but that they are seriously strong, which just makes Nagi want to crush them even more. He thinks that the reason why he can feel this fire now is because Ryo invited him that day, and Nagi thinks that Ryo was probably right about Nagi, as since he has started playing soccer at Blue Lock, he has learned the taste of defeat and he has changed. Now he wants to grow stronger, and he apologizes for not being with him and for leaving him behind and changing. We then see Isagi calling out for Nagi as he says that it's time to eat and devour them, and Nagi couldn't agree more before hoping that Ryo will be able to forgive him. But with that, the kickoff starts, and Chigiri has the ball. Baru calls out for him, but as he sees Tokimitsu right by Baru, Chigiri isn't that tempted to pass. We then get to Nagi, who says that Isagi is always on the lookout for a pass from Chigiri, and that he's circling Chigiri while using Baru as bait and positioning himself for a direct pass that even Rin can't touch. But Rin is also reading that, and Nagi says that if he is honest, then he has no idea what the two of them are seeing, as those two are viewing the field on the same level. And yet the reason why Isagi can't win against Rin is pure and simple: the difference in their physical stats, explaining that outside from their spatial awareness, when it comes to other factors like height, physique, speed and jumping ability, Isagi falls short, which is why even if they predict the flow of the game exactly the same way, Rin comes out ahead with his positioning, and Isagi falls just one move short of the checkmate, and in that case, Nagi will become that one move as we see him starting to rush up on the field, thinking that the future that Isagi and Rin can see and control the field, he will smash it up. And we even see Isagi's whole puzzle being completely rewritten by Nagi's unpredictable play. Chigiri then spots Nagi and give him the pass, but even then Nagi says that Rin reacts too quickly once again. But if that's the case, then he will just let the pass roll and go towards Isagi. Nagi tells Isagi in his mind to read this situation, and in this moment, for the sake of his goal, rewrite the future of this battlefield, which we see that Isagi does as his brain is legit working overtime trying to cook up something nasty. And it's exactly what Nagi wants, as Isagi sends a pass directly behind Rin. But even with a perfect pass like this, Rin is still not lagging behind. In that case, he has no other choice than to trick Rin, as it looks like Nagi goes into a shooting position. But in reality, he was only trapping the ball, and from there, he can use his two-stage fake volley to score his first goal and making the scores even. Isagi calls it insane, and as Nagi lands, he says that he knew it and that with Isagi, he can become even stronger. He looks completely fired up as he apologizes to Ryo and says that he has now gotten the taste of this thrill and that he can't go back to who he used to be. Tokimitsu, Aryu, and Bachira are mind-blown by this play, and Bachira asks Rin if this is still lukewarm. Rin tells him to be silent, but admits that even he feels the heat when he is provoked. We then see Team Isagi celebrating behind them, and Isagi thinks that they did it and that this is the first time they beat Rin, thinking that if he is with Nagi, then they can duke it out evenly. However, he can't become the best striker in the world that way, as he wants to win against Rin on his own. But it's far from Isagi who can feel the heat, as Bachira starts to look manic, as he says that the monsters are coming out to play. We then get to Anri, who says that Nagi's shot just now was unbelievable, saying that with that fake shot, he kept the ball spinning, and then he let it stay afloat, and when it came down, that's when he actually shot to make the goal, looking super happy, as she says that a play like this is nothing short of a miracle. But we then have Ego in the back, who says that dismissing it as something as easy as a miracle is what exposes her mediocrity. Henri gets mad and says that the play right now was crazy and that it isn't something you could pull off again, even if you tried. Ego just says that he wonders about that as the will to score a goal here and the skill to back it up, all put in the environment of a specific set of game situations with just the right players. When all of these conditions stack in just the right way, one's performance can exceed human understanding and miracles can be explained, saying that its formula lies just beyond this selection. We then get back to the game where Isagi thinks that it's now 2 versus 2 and that the match is just starting, while Isagi's perception of the field and Nagi's physical ability might not be enough on their own. They just proved that when they put their abilities together, they can win against Rin, but still that goal wouldn't have been possible without everyone's performances building on each other. He thinks about how their respective parameters looks like and says that if they want to win against Rin, then just like now, they have to create a situation where they are facing him in a parameter, where they have got the edge, and as long as they can advance the ball evenly, their weapons that are superior to Rin's will work, and the fact that they're going back and forth in score is proof that his eyes and brain have evolved to the same level as Rin. But so what of it? If he can't win against Rin on his own, then he can't become the best striker in the world, so being on the same level isn't enough, as he needs to be one more step ahead of Rin and read the flow of the game to then seize the future of the field ahead of Rin. But suddenly, Rin speaks up as he says that he will from now on control this field, and he tells his team that if they want to win, then they will have to do their best to keep up, which gets all of them excited, and they then start the game again, with Rin's eyes burning like never before. Rin has the ball, and he spots Tokimitsu on the right, but he doesn't send a normal pass, but one that is curving on the outside. But Baru is unable to see it, and thinks that Rin missed the pass, and that he will get to it first. But Isagi knows that it's not like that, as the ball will land in front of Baru, but then start to spin back in Tokimitsu's direction, which we see is what happens. And with the ball, Tokimitsu can use his shoulder charge to completely kill off Baru. After that, Rin comes to Tokimitsu, and with him being positioned freely, he is able to receive the pass from Tokimitsu with ease, and without wasting a single second, he sends a direct pass right off the bat towards Aryu. Aryu sees that this pass is different from Bachira's, and that this is an oppressive pass meant to challenge his limitations, which leaves him with only one choice, which is to rise to the challenge as he jumps up and makes a mid-air chest trap. He then gets down to the ground, but unfortunately Chigiri had already caught up, and this forces Aryu to send the ball back to Rin. Isagi then screams at Nagi to look out for Rin's shot, and Nagi says that he is on it. Isagi knows that it's a 2 versus 2 in the goal zone, but he wonders whether he will shoot or maybe pass to Bachira. Nagi thinks that he is moving to shoot, but he tells himself not to jump in and thinks that it might be a feint and that he won't fall for it again. However, it turns out to be far from it, as Rin does a roulette turn around him, but right behind Nagi was Isagi, who says that he can read him. However, Rin, to his surprise, tells him that he is 2 steps behind, which we clearly see as the ball, which Isagi was supposed to grab, is already heading to Bachira, who even he is in shock, but he then smirks and says that he sees, and that he wasn't reading the flow, but that everyone was being manipulated. Tokimitsu's physique, Aryu's jumping power, and even Isagi's ability to read, testing the limits of all those on the field and drawing out their abilities to new heights, and all to make them dance to the tune of his will. Isagi then understands that all of them were just Rin's marionettes, and then we see Bachira obviously scoring the goal and winning Team Rin the lead. But it's far from over, as Rin looks furious as he asks Isagi if he really thought that he could read him, calling Isagi a puppet sideshow, which leaves him extra annoyed. Chigiri then says that friend or foe, it doesn't matter as Rin is controlling everything on the field. We then get to Isagi on the ground, who says that now that he thinks about it, it's been like that from the very first match that they played. At its core, Rin's soccer is all about manipulating and controlling what his opponent thinks. Until now, Rin's always played on his own, using just his own abilities to demonstrate this. But now, he's starting to use both his opponents and his allies to manipulate the entire field. What's more, is that he's identifying each person's individual talent and drawing out their maximum potential, all to drag everyone to the high-level future that he's envisioning. Technique, an eye for tactics, physical capability. All of these come together to allow Rin to do what he does. This makes Isagi realize how truly scary Rin is, and he wonders if he can even devour him. After that, Nagi speaks up and says that it looks like he'll read through anything even remotely easy, which means that they just have to go beyond what he can even imagine. Chigiri agrees and says that it is a goal that, even if he understood, he couldn't possibly chase after, saying that they are going to be playing at a merciless difficulty. But if they can all go in with their weapons cranked to the max, they might be able to break through. Isagi says yeah, and for them to let's go, as he thinks that this is the only option. However, at that same time, the king was quietly and secretly sharpening his fangs. But with that, the game was back on, and Isagi has the ball. He thinks that there's no room for error, and that they need to spark the chemical reaction of an all-out attack. He looks at Rin and Bachira, and thinks that they've changed up their defense, and now Rin's pressing in the front while Bachira's bringing up the rear. Isagi wonders what his plan is, and thinks that he can't tell. So instead, he decides to bet on Chigiri's speed. Ryu goes to him, and says that this pattern is getting boring. But that's when Chigiri cooks up a new move, as he kicks the ball and then enters his top speed, which leaves Ryu in the dust. Isagi thinks that Chigiri broke their formation, and that they will burst through in one stroke. But just then, Rin appears in front of Chigiri. Chigiri wonders if he should confront him or not, but he then remembers that this means that there's one less person in the middle, so he passes to Nagi telling him to break through. The ball lands in the pit between Tokimitsu, Bachira, Nagi and Isagi, so it's now a death battle for the ball. Isagi thinks that Tokimitsu is coming for the tackle. Meanwhile, Bachira is waiting to counter Nagi, but due to that, Isagi thinks that he will use his blind spot to rush outside, and as he tries to respond, he will pivot in the opposite direction of his center of gravity and then get behind him. Nagi then gets to the ball before Tokimitsu and passes it perfectly over to Isagi, who broke free from Bachira. And he says that he is free and that he only needs to score now. But then, out of nowhere, Rin appears, and Isagi wonders where he came from, wondering if Rin predicted what he was planning and headed for the point that he didn't break through. Isagi gets stressed as he wonders just what he should do. However, he knows that at the very least he needs to retain possession, but in a battle of physical contact, he has no chance of beating him. Isagi looks lost as he thinks that their perfect chemical reaction when playing against Rin at full strength is all useless. But then, out of the blue, Baru comes and says that he wins, and that this is his ball now. Everyone is shocked to see Baru, and Ryu and Tokimitsu are amazed that he stole the ball from his teammate. Isagi, however, thinks that with single-minded intention and famishment, the king had been lying in wait in the blind spot of his prey. From a place where Isagi wouldn't notice him, he stole away the ball all for the moment when he could feed upon the spoils of his hunt. Even Rin is pissed off, as he has never seen something like that, and that's why Isagi thinks that it worked, as there's no entry like that in Rin's database. And to someone like Rin with his finely calculated soccer, Baru's villainous playing style is an out-of-control irregularity, saying that this is King Baru's proof of existence. After that, Baru scores with minimal effort and asks Rin what's wrong before asking if he doesn't want to try and control him. He then goes to Isagi and says that this isn't enough and for Baru to get to devour even more, and Isagi just smiles as he thinks that Baru is the key to cracking Rin. Isagi thinks that in his dogged persistence to devour Isagi, throughout this whole game, Baru's playing style has centered on stealing the ball from him before trying to score a goal, and in the brain of the genius Rin, he's an unpredictable irregularity. Having grasped the abilities of both his opponents and his allies, he forcibly draws them out and utilizes them, which is Rin's logical and predictive style of playing, which is precisely why he couldn't read the king of villains, Baru's self-centered soccer. This makes Isagi's eyes light up as he says that he sees, and that the key is to become someone he can't read, and that way Rin can't control you, calling Baru's existence a glitch in the system. The others from Team Rin then say that it might get a little troublesome, but Rin says that he has already inputted him, and that there won't be a next time, and just like that, the match is back on. However, just as they start, Isagi goes to Chigiri and asks if he can go all out from now, using his speed, as Isagi needs him to hound whoever's in possession of the ball. Chigiri says alright, and that he will go for it. Nagi then says that it means that he will take care of Ryu. Meanwhile, Chigiri positions himself in front of him, telling Rin to just try and get past him. But Rin isn't playing around like that as he passes to Bachira on the right side. Bachira says that Rin gave him a pass to the wide open side and that he is telling Rin to dribble through, but just then, Isagi appears in front of Bachira, but Isagi then stops. Bachira thinks that he is keeping his distance instead of rushing in and that he is more concerned about letting Bachira through, but just then, Chigiri comes behind Bachira and is so close to stealing away the ball that Bachira says that it was close and says that they wanted to use Chigiri to surround them into a 2 versus 1 situation. He sees that Rin was waiting in a good spot, but just then, Isagi went to him, and Bachira then realizes that by using Chigiri's speed to stall them, Isagi, who is always one step short of Rin, is now trying to devour him. Chigiri then says that this is their first time facing one another, and Bachira asks him to please go easy on him. Bachira then pulls out some scissors and tries to get past Chigiri, but he is following closely with his speed. Bachira says that it will be harder than he thought, but that's when he lifts the ball to both sides, and before Chigiri knows it, Bachira has already gone to the right and is now halfway past him, which makes him able to send a pass, or that's if Isagi wasn't right by him. Bachira can't believe it, as he says that he was just by Rin and wonders if he waited for Bachira to make his move. Bachira knows that he is now in trouble, but he thinks that he might be able to just barely squeeze through. But just as he is through, Isagi says, "Now," and that's when Baru comes and is ready to devour him. Bachira can't believe it, saying that they got him and that all along it was a setup for Baru. While preventing him from passing to Rin, Isagi was closing in on him with Baru in tow, looking back at Isagi and saying that he used himself as bait and paved the way for Baru to steal the ball. We then get to Baru, who is headed to the goal, but he has Tokimitsu right by him. Chigiri screams at him to get past him and that he is free after Tokimitsu. Baru then uses a chop feint, which Tokimitsu falls for, and just when he should be free, Rin comes by and tells him that he won't let it happen on his watch as he kicks away the ball out of bounds. It looks like time freezes for Isagi as he asks if Rin is serious, saying that he took one look at Baru's chop feint and was able to predict and stop it. But he says that it wasn't like he read him, but that he was able to react in time to counter. Because Rin couldn't predict Baru, Rin was constantly positioning himself in a place he could counter, and if either one of them missed a single step, they would lose the goal. Isagi knows that they are now neck and neck in a race of who can read faster, and that Baru's very existence, which is incomprehensible to Rin, is between Isagi trying to maximize its use and Rin minimally withstanding it. Whoever succeeds in taking control of Baru in the field will win this match. We then get to Bachira, who looks at both Isagi and Rin having monster auras around them, and he is in pure awe. He says that they are trading blows on an unbelievable level. On this field, right now, there are 2 monsters. Bachira says that he knew it, and they're both monsters, and that he doesn't even care which one wins, as the soccer he has been wanting to play is right before his eyes, and that his dream will finally come true, and that he can play with these monsters. But just then, his world stops as both Isagi and Rin runs past him without even batting an eye to him. And Bachira is just left wondering what happened before he looks back at them and says that at long last he is not alone anymore, but in their world, he simply doesn't exist. Bachira continues and says that he thought that he would finally be able to play soccer with them, so why are those 2 playing soccer in a different world from him? He asks them to please not leave him behind, saying that Rin and Isagi are a pair of monsters. But what is Bachira then, thinking that the one being put to the test was actually himself? We then see Isagi and Rin being in a furious battle with each other before Chigiri comes by and kicks the ball out of bounds. Isagi compliments Chigiri and says that he was trying to pass to him. Chigiri says that he wishes that he was just a little bit faster, but we then see Chigiri being a bit hurt, so Isagi asks him if he is okay and if it's his knee that is hurting. Chigiri, however, says that it isn't, but that he is starting to run low on gas, telling Isagi to not even dare worry about him, as if Isagi loses to Rin, then Chigiri will personally kill him. Isagi looks intense as he says, "Yeah," and tells Chigiri to run till he dies. After that, Isagi thinks that the reason why he could trade blows evenly with Rin was because of Chigiri pressuring them, but it's impossible to expect him to maintain that speed, thinking that it doesn't just apply to Chigiri, but that everyone, including Isagi, is running dangerously low on gas. He knows that it's a given, and that in this high-level soccer game, everyone's been going full throttle, Now that their conditions are starting to deteriorate, it's definitely going to impact everyone's play. Thinking that whoever can adapt to this change first will control the endgame, and just then, the match is back on with Ryu throwing the ball over to Rin, who right away sends it toward Tokimitsu, which confuses Isagi as he says that neither of them are exactly in position to pose a threat, which is why Tokimitsu right away sends it back to Rin. But as Rin gets the ball, he just sends it back to Tokimitsu again. Isagi doesn't understand Rin's plan and wonders what kind of offense this is, but he then sees that this is bad, as Tokimitsu and Rin are breaking their formation while pushing forward. He explains that this is a new pattern. Before Chigiri can pressure them, and before they can react, the ball's already in motion. But he wonders how they are getting past them so easily, as it's not like Rin's pulling out any special passes here. But suddenly Isagi sees Tokimitsu starting to break away from Baru, and knows that the one who's making this possible, the one who's been snapping at Baru's heels from the moment the match began, the only one who isn't starting to feel the burn of the endgame and continues to be able to respond to Rin's passes, it's Tokimitsu, who is a beast with unlimited stamina. We then see Tokimitsu beginning to smile as he says that this is a pass in the goal zone, but just then, both Baru and Chigiri crashes into him. This makes all of them fall to the ground, and it's obviously a foul, so both Chigiri and Baru gets a yellow card, which they really tries to argue with. We also see Tokimitsu apologizing to Rin as he only got them a free kick, but Rin is just silent. We then see Isagi trying to catch his breath as he says that Tokimitsu and Rin's chemical reaction just now, he has never been able to realize it, and if he would have been able to do it earlier, then he might have prevented it from happening. But still, it's not like they will concede the goal to them, as Isagi is determined not to let this free kick go as Rin wants it to. Nagi says that it's about 25 meters to the goalpost, and that it isn't looking good as it is within Rin's reach. Isagi glares at Rin as he thinks about whether he will go straight for the goal or if he will pass, thinking that these are Rin's only two options. Isagi says that if he tries to shoot, then he will act like a wall, and if he tries to pass, then he will move to where they are outnumbered to press, and he says that he is in a position to be able to respond to whichever he chooses. But even then, he needs to react the moment he kicks the ball, and just then, Rin gets into position and runs to the ball, and before Isagi can even realize it, Rin has already shot the ball over him, which meant that it easily went right into the goal, and Isagi is amazed that Rin didn't even give him a chance to react. Anyway, with that, Rin's team got the lead, and Rin looks super cold as he asks Isagi if he was wavering between whether he would pass or shoot. However, he tells him that his analysis was off, as there were never two options for Rin in this position, as the only option for him was to score a goal, which we can see annoys Isagi a bit. But we then get to Bachira, who just looks at this confused. He says that both Rin and Isagi are playing for the sake of their own goals, and that they're playing soccer in a way that's true to their egos, thinking that, in that case, what exactly is he playing soccer for? Wondering if it's to find a monster or maybe to make friends. But he quickly says that with something like that, he won't be able to catch up to Isagi and Rin, so he starts looking wild as he wonders what exactly his ego truly is. After that, we get to Baru, who screams at Isagi and asks him why he didn't jump. Nagi on the other hand says that this isn't good, as it's one more goal and it's game over for them. We then get to Isagi, who is cooking in his mind as he says that Rin's free kick just now. There was no feasible way to defend against that goal, and what he should have read instead was the play before that where Tokimitsu and Rin broke through. Isagi says that he was able to see that everyone was moving a bit more sluggishly, but Rin realized before him that Tokimitsu was the lone exception. Then he drew out Tokimitsu's bottomless stamina, made all the more effective in the final phase of the match, and to set up that huge opportunity. Meanwhile, all they could do was try and stop them, thinking that if he had noticed Tokimitsu's ability before Rin, then he might have had a chance to change the outcome. He looks annoyed as he says that it's always that one last step. Just when he thinks that he is about to catch up, Rin slips out of his reach. Isagi then overhears Baru saying that if he was in that wall, then he would have blocked Rin's shot, and Isagi thinks that it was because he was in the wall that Rin aimed above his head, and that if Baru was in the wall, Rin would just have aimed somewhere else to make the goal. But suddenly, Isagi comes up with something as his puzzle pieces start to go wild, and he says that he understands, and that Rin kicked that way because he was his opponent. He says that this is it, and that from that perspective, if he can utilize himself from a different angle, and if he can devour Rin, then he can turn it around. We then see all of Team Isagi being super pumped up, and Nagi says that they will catch up no matter what, and asks Isagi if he is right. Isagi looks intense as he says yeah, and that it's too soon to end the game here, and just like that, the kickoff is back on. Baru is running straight to Tokimitsu and knows that if he can't outmaneuver Tokimitsu, then he won't be able to score, but suddenly Baru spots Isagi with the ball behind him. He thinks that for once Isagi is moving along with him and thinks that he is telling Baru to ditch Tokimitsu. Baru then does that and screams at Isagi to give him the ball. But in reality, he was far away from ditching Tokimitsu as he appears right on his side, telling him that it's so easy to keep up with Baru. But as they are arguing, Isagi continues to run up the field, and Baru thinks that Isagi used him as bait, but Isagi won't have it that easy as Bachira goes in front of him. Baru, who is still struggling with Tokimitsu, screams for the ball, but he is not the only one, as Nagi comes on his side asking for a 1-2 pass. But Isagi thinks that no matter what they do, Rin's watching over everything and lying in wait. But he then says that he was waiting for this, and that right now, while everyone's waiting for him to pass, he sends the ball all the way towards the other side, and to a wide open space, where we see Chigiri using all of his speed to run towards it. Aryu, who is right by him, asks if he isn't getting tired, but Chigiri doesn't respond. After that, Isagi says that in anticipation of Chigiri's pass, they all rush to the goal zone, thinking that in this evolving situation, he is the only one who can read ahead and move accordingly, as while everyone else is struggling to gain the upper hand, he will disappear into the far side of Rin's field of vision and cut towards the inside. Taking the shortest route, he will break diagonally to the goal post. Chigiri spots this right away as he sees Isagi slipping out from the group that's heading for the goal zone. We then see Isagi looking super furious as he tells Chigiri to give the ball to him, which is exactly what he does. With this, Isagi says that the future that he envisioned it's here and that everything is wide open. He knows that with his direct shot, he can shoot it. But just then, as the ball rolls closer to him, out of nowhere Rin appears, which Isagi can't even believe as even though Isagi broke away perfectly, Rin still managed to keep up. Isagi says that Rin is in range to block his shot and that he can't shoot like this. He gets sad as he says that he knew it and that he can't beat Rin after all, but that's when Isagi gets the biggest switch up as his eyes starts to burn with determination as he says that he has got him, thinking that sure if Isagi tried to shoot here, then Rin would stop him. But on the flip side, it means that Rin have to step out to block his shot, and because of that, the next move they make will be their last. Isagi then starts to turn and says that this is only possible because Rin could predict what he would do and calls it the blind spot of a genius, thinking that since he isn't shooting here and Rin has already taken that last step, he will fall behind, because this is his true last move and it's nothing other than a direct kick backwards, which is exactly what he does as he makes a back heel shot right into the top corner, and everyone except Baru from his team looks super excited to see this, and mostly Isagi, who says that he has now devoured Rin and that he will surpass him. We then see Isagi, Chigiri and Nagi celebrating as they have just evened out the scores. Chigiri is in pure shock, and he says that Isagi has caught up and calls him the best. Even Nagi looks amazed as he says that it was amazing and that he took out Rin on his own. We then have Baru on the side, who asks Isagi if that entire play right now was calculated. Isagi looks at him and says that it was. He explains that his thought at first was just to slip out and shoot straight for the goal, but then with the assumption that Rin would predict everything, he finalized his plan with a back heel as the finisher, saying that under normal circumstances, he should have been able to score just by breaking through to the goalpost, but because it was Rin, he was able to keep up and even block his shot. Because of his genius and his superior physical capabilities, he knew that he would be able to keep up with him all the way to the end, explaining that it's a formula specifically designed to counter Rin, only made possible because he believed in him. Baru says that it means that if he hadn't come through as planned, Rin might have scored instead, and calling it a big gamble. Chigiri says that even then, if it wasn't for him sharing the same eyes as Rin, this wouldn't have been possible, and Nagi adds in by saying that this means that in terms of both score and ability, they are on even ground with the top three. Isagi says that he is right, and in this last play, they will win and show them once and for all who the better team is, and all of them look super fired up, with Isagi thinking that they need to win and that there's no point unless they can surpass them. We then get back to Bachira, who wonders about the ego that he is lacking in order to catch up with Isagi and Rin. He says that the reason why he came to Blue Lock was to find a monster and to find friends that he could play soccer with, thinking that he doesn't have any other reasons, as he just wants to play soccer with those two. But he deep down knows that with this feeling alone, with this ego alone, he won't be able to reach their world, so what more should he really be wishing for? After that, we see both Tokimitsu and Aryu beginning to panic a bit, but Rin tells them to bring out everything that they have got left or die trying, as he says that the final goal will be his, with his eye burning like never before, and then the last play starts. Rin starts off by trading passes with Tokimitsu, but Baru quickly comes by him and tells him that the same trick won't work twice. Chigiri then comes by and tells him good job and to focus on Tokimitsu. However, Tokimitsu still managed to get off a pass to Rin. But just then, we get to Isagi, who thinks that just like Rin and Tokimitsu's combo broke through the midfield earlier, Chigiri and Baru are pressuring him, and that he's going to get scared and pass back to Rin, which is right when he needs to cut in. And he does just that as he goes to Rin and says that it could go either way. But in the end, he misses the ball in the last split second, and Rin then gives it over to Aryu. However, Aryu isn't having it easy exactly, as he has Nagi by him, who says that this is going to come down to who can trap the ball. He thinks that he will let Aryu trap the ball in midair, and just when it's bouncing off him, he will come in and steal the ball, which at the start looks to work, but that's when Aryu calls him impatient and jumps up again to trap it. Nagi thinks that he stole it right back and tells Aryu that his legs are way too long. Aryu just lands on the ground, however, with the ball in possession. Isagi, who is a bit behind, says that this isn't good and that they are going to get through, but he is determined to, at the very least, hold Rin down. Aryu sees Isagi covering Rin and says that he is always in the way, but that he can see an opening, so he passes the ball behind Isagi to Bachira. Bachira gets it and thinks that right now he is being tested on what he can do. He starts to wonder who he should give it to, if he should pass or keep on dribbling. But what happens after that, and what does everyone want from Bachira? Bachira is confused and asks his monster to tell him what to do for both Rin and Isagi to acknowledge him. But just as he is in his head, Chigiri comes by and tackles him, telling him that if he is looking for an answer, he should ask an 8-ball, and saying that this is a battlefield. Rin is visibly annoyed by this. Meanwhile, Isagi says that it's a loose ball and it's heading over to Baru, who just in time gets it before Tokimitsu. Chigiri screams to go and counter and starts to run with all that he can. Suddenly Nagi appears right by Bachira and calls it unlike him and asks him if he is trying to throw the game before asking him if he seriously thinks that he will be chosen even if he loses. Nagi tells him that, to be honest, the way that Bachira is now, they don't need him, and that if they win, Nagi wants Rin, and he tells Bachira that he is pretty sure that Isagi feels the same way. And as he hears this, it looks like his whole world crumbles, as he says that if they lose, then he won't get chosen, and that he won't be able to play soccer with either Isagi or Rin. This makes him super upset, as he starts to run and scream no, over and over again, telling himself that feelings and ego, none of that matters right now, as he is going to win, even if it kills him. We then get to Baru, who is struggling with Tokimitsu, and Isagi screams at him to pass, and not to try and fight with Tokimitsu. Baru laughs and says that he doesn't have to tell him, and that he is tired of this muscled beast, so he passes Isagi, who right away returns with favor, with a pass back, and tells him to let's go. Isagi thinks that since they have only ever stolen the ball from each other, they will subvert Rin and Tokimitsu's expectations by passing to each other, calling it a Isagi and Baru anti-combo 1-2 pass. Tokimitsu screams at Baru to come back, and Aryu says that this game is giving him whiplash. Meanwhile, Chigiri says that they got through, and Nagi tells them to finish this. But the text then said that in the midst of everyone whose eyes were fixed solely on the ball, there was one lone boy who had been left behind, who was Bachira. Bachira says that he doesn't want to lose, and that with everything that he has found here, he was really happy just being able to keep playing soccer with Isagi by his side, saying that he doesn't want to lose the first friend he has ever made, explaining that he is scared to go back to those days of being alone. But then, he remembers his mother's words, telling him when he was a kid that as people get older, everyone stops believing, even when they don't want to, and while they're pretending that they can't hear it, they actually become unable to hear their own voice. And this makes Bachira confused, as he wonders, since when he became afraid of being alone again, and when he did start playing soccer to avoid being left behind, explaining that without even realizing it, he has been playing soccer in order to be wanted by someone, and that he has been seeking someone else's voice instead of his. But what he should have been believing in wasn't someone else's voice, as even if it kills him, he will win and steal back Isagi. That's what his voice is telling him to do. We then see Bachira coming closer to Isagi and trying to tackle him, which Isagi manages to avoid. But Isagi admits that he didn't expect Bachira to come at him this hard, and says that Rin will definitely try and make use of this. So now one step ahead of him, he will pass to Chigiri on the right. Chigiri gets the ball right away and says that they have reached the climax as he sends it into the goal zone. Bachira sees this closely and tells them to hold on and not to end. Back to the ball, which goes to Nagi, who makes a high jump towards the ball and says that he is here for his Best Supporting Actor award, as the trap he did with his chest. He then let the ball roll over to Isagi and told him to finish it, and calling him striker. We then see Isagi running towards the ball in full speed with Bachira behind him. Isagi looks determined as he tells them that his teammates are the best, and he says that it's narrow, but that he can still make the shot. Isagi says that this is the end and their victory as he shoots away the ball. But just as he does that, Bachira tells him to wait and to just give him one last chance, and someone seems to have heard Bachira's prayers as Rin came in the last second, and with his head he stopped the ball from going, in which Isagi can't even believe. But the ball then soars over the sky and goes to Bachira. Rin falls to the ground, but Aryu and Tokimitsu is right on it, as they scream for them to counter, and alongside Bachira, they rush to Team Isagi's goal. But as Bachira is running, his monster begins to creep out, but Bachira tells him to stop, as if he is here. Then he will just end up relying on him. Bachira says that at first, that was enough for him, and because the monster was there, he wasn't alone, and that it's thanks to him that Bachira was able to keep believing in himself, which is how he was able to come to Blue Lock and make friends. He sincerely thanks the monster for being by his side until now, but he says that he can't go with him any further, as if he is always relying on him, then he won't be able to catch up to those two, screaming at the monster to go away, and that he is begging him as he doesn't need a monster anymore. We then get to Isagi's perspective as we see Bachira rushing towards him, and Isagi says that if Bachira gets past him, then the game is over, and that he needs to defend at all costs until the rest of the team can get back to their side. We then get back over to Bachira, whose monster comes out, and tells him that if he just waits for someone to come to him, then he will be able to pass the ball and break past Isagi. But that's when Bachira stops the ball and says that the habit of him seeking a monster is ingrained in his body, and that the monster that played soccer with him when he was young, the monster that once became his hope, has now all of a sudden turned into a curse that's limiting and locking away his thoughts. Bachira says that at some point playing with the monster became his purpose in life, but once he met Isagi in Blue Lock and he became a true monster for Bachira, it was all so much fun that playing soccer with Isagi then became his reason for existing, and he became someone who couldn't play soccer without Isagi. But he very well knows that if he doesn't break this curse, then he won't be able to go any further. Just then, Tokimitsu appears on his right, but Bachira sees the monster being right by him. Isagi thinks that he will pass, but Bachira tells everyone to get lost and that he won't pass to a monster anymore, as he instead just takes the ball and goes forward against Isagi and hitting with him an outstanding nutmeg. Isagi looks back shocked and says that his dribbling is so wild and that he has never seen Bachira like this before. He knows that this isn't the old Bachira, and his eyes gets fired up. Nagi then screams out to Chigiri telling him that he should be able to catch up, which we see is true as he comes right in front of Bachira and tells him that he won't let him get away. But then again, Aryu comes on his left, but like before, the monster is right by him, which is why Bachira looks angry as he says that he won't pass and does an out-of-worldly double nutmeg on Chigiri. But then suddenly someone grabs his shoulder, and it's Baru. Tokimitsu once again screams at him to pass and that he will lose the ball, but Bachira tells them all to be silent and that he is waking himself up to break this curse, and he gets out of Baru's grip with him doing his third nutmeg. Nagi looks at this and says that his movements are sharp and that at this rate they will lose. But we then see Isagi alongside Rin, and Isagi says that there are 40 meters to the goalpost and that right now, without a doubt, Bachira has become an unreadable wildcard. But just then, he gets surrounded by Nagi, Baru, and Chigiri. Isagi says that they are doing a good job at keeping him in check, but he then sees Rin, who is starting to move. He looks at Rin's positioning and thinks that he's moving to a place where Bachira could easily pass to him and from where he could easily go on to score the goal. However, Isagi can see that as well, and he will not let the pass go like Rin has planned. After that, Nagi, Chigiri, and Baru get ready to go at him, but Bachira tells them all to be silent and that all of them are scurrying around him, telling them to get out of his way and calling them nobodies before he then lifts the ball, which shocks everyone, and Aryu says that he still plans on doing it alone. Bachira then looks completely manic as he wonders how long it has been since he tried to fight without the monster, thinking that he had almost forgotten this freedom and his origin. We then get over to Isagi, whose pieces are beginning to scatter around as he says that he sees, and that the unreadable existence he needs to win against Rin, he will risk everything on this last piece, and that the one he needs to devour is the monster, Bachira. We then move back to Bachira, who says that it's right, and just like those days when he didn't need a monster, even though he was alone, it was just so much fun. He would have chased the ball from sunrise to sundown, and just like those earlier days, he needs to think back and remember that feeling that he grew unable to hear. Back when becoming one with the ball was all that mattered, back when that was the only reason he needed to play soccer. He sticks his tongue out and says that for him, there is nothing in this world that's more fun than this. Even if he gets called names and made fun of, even if he is alone, and even if he doesn't have Isagi, he will fight. Bachira then does an awesome looking heel pass to himself, But just then, Nagi puts out his whole arm and manages to just in time grab Bachira's shoulder, telling him that it's enough. Just then, Rin comes and is free. However, Bachira's monster is all around him. So Bachira screams that it won't happen, as he will become the monster. As to get off Nagi, he legit makes a spin right there and says that even if there's nobody else waiting for him there, it will be lonely, but from now on, he will dance by himself. He gets into shooting position and says goodbye to the monster and goodbye to the Isagi who played soccer with him until now, before shooting his shot and saying that he is taking back the soccer which he played alone, explaining that it's what will release him and calls it his original ego. But just as he shoots the ball, Isagi pops up right in front of him and manages to just in time block the shot. Bachira's eyes then goes back to normal. Meanwhile, Isagi's looks completely manic as he says that he believed in Bachira. After that, we get to 8 seconds earlier, where we see Isagi thinking that Rin's positioning is perfect, saying that once Bachira is surrounded by those three, he will at some point have no choice but to pass, and Rin ran towards the best position to receive the pass, saying that Rin is predicting everything, and the only one who can stop him is of course Isagi, who says that if he takes the shortest route to chase after Rin, he might be able to intercept the pass, but instead, he drops that plan as he heads over to devour Bachira, saying that instead of the evenly matched future that they have predicted, he is going after the unreadable Bachira's future, in which he alone breaks through everything. He's been receiving his passes all this time so he can see the ego that the Bachira until now would never have chosen in this very last moment, which is why Isagi decided to believe in him and win, not to mention that in that instant, Isagi's play surely surpassed that of Rin. Now, if the ball that Bachira had shot had grazed Isagi's right foot at an angle that was even 1 centimeter off, the fates of these 8 players may have changed dramatically. But the ball randomly and mercilessly fell towards none other than Rin, who firstly traps it before he locks in and sends it right into the goal and wins his team the match, and all of Team Isagi looks completely crushed. Isagi even slams his hands into the ground the hardest that he can. Meanwhile, we get to Bachira, who says that he fought all by himself, and he believed in the soccer in which he didn't need anyone else, and there in the world in which he is alone, Isagi was, and Bachira looks happy. Meanwhile, Isagi still looks towards the ground. After that, Tokimitsu jumps on top of Aryu and asks who they are picking, and Aryu says that it's a good question, but that's when Bachira tells them to hold on, as now that he knows that he can live without Isagi. That's why with his head high, he can say that he wants him, and just when he is about to say it, Rin speaks up, and he has an angry tone as he tells them that he will choose, which leaves them all shocked. But Rin says that there will be no objections. He says that he was completely unable to read that last play, saying that it's the first time since coming to Blue Lock that he has tasted defeat, which makes it one more person that he needs to crush. And he looks towards Isagi and tells him that he won't let him sink here, and tells him to come on, and that he will have a front row view of his ascension to the world's #1. And we then see Bachira having a huge smile on himself as he hears that. However, we then get to Isagi, who is just in shock as he wonders why he got chosen, saying that in that final play, when even Rin was unable to read Bachira, he was able to read him and won, but then the ball fell towards Rin. Once again, Isagi was unable to win against Rin, and he wonders what he could have done better, and just what he is missing. He says that the ball he sent flying up, no one could have possibly known where it would fall, meaning that when it came down to it, the determining factor of this game, and the difference between him and Rin, Isagi wonders if it could have just been a bit of luck. After that, Bachira speaks up and tells him to go, and Isagi snaps back and gets up. He says that his head is all a jumble right now, but as he is walking, he remembers his former teammates and waits up as he looks back and apologizes to them. They all look out of breath as Isagi tells them that they were just 1 step short of beating the top 3, explaining that the last goal was nothing but pure luck, so it's not like they really lost. Chigiri then cuts him off and tells him to cut it out. He tells Isagi that Rin chose him and that it's their reality, telling him to just go already. Baru adds in and says that if he has to see Isagi's face any longer, then he will smash it and to go on already. Lastly, Nagi speaks up as he says that Isagi really was this team's protagonist, but he tells Isagi that the next time they will crush him and that he will claw his way up without Isagi. Isagi just looks at them in shock before he says that without them, there's no way that he would have been able to come his far, and that the fierce times they have gone through and the fact that he was able to fight alongside them is something he will take pride in. And Isagi looks at them and tells them that they better come and that they will fight again, and he then starts going towards the door. All of them looks at him, and just when he has left the room, they can finally fall to the ground, and there they admit how truly angry they are as they are going back to the 3rd stage. After that, we get to the 4th stage clear corridor. Tokimitsu welcomes him and says that he was gonna pick him as well, and says that he is happy to now have a reliable teammate. Isagi thanks him before Ryu says that, to be perfectly honest, he wanted Chigiri, but he says that Isagi's backheel goal was pretty stylish and welcomes him aboard, and he then bows and thanks them both. Both them goes into their stylish and weird characters, and Isagi thinks to himself that they truly are weird. But that's when Bachira speaks up and says that Isagi told him that he was going to steal him back, but that it looks like the reverse happened. Isagi scratches his head and apologizes about that, and says that it's pretty lame. Bachira, however, says that it's fine, and that since it's because he wasn't here, that Bachira was able to learn how to fight by himself, explaining that the thing is, until now he was afraid of playing soccer by himself, and that he guesses that he wanted Isagi to come and save him. But once he tried fighting on his own like he had done as a kid, he realized that in this whole wide world, he is the only one who can save himself, saying that it was with that belief that he was able to push onwards and make that miraculous play. And then Isagi was there, and in that moment, without a doubt, they definitely surpassed Rin. He looks to the ground and thanks Isagi as he has become someone who can fight even without him. But now that he is here, Bachira is thrilled as they are in this together from now on. Isagi just thinks that seeing Bachira say that with a smile, he felt a growing sense of maturity from him. But as they go to high five, Bachira instead smacks him on his head, and they laugh about it before Isagi calls out for Rin, asking Rin to tell Isagi exactly why he lost. Rin is confused, but Isagi says that in their match just now, he couldn't defeat Rin, and he asks Rin just what he is missing. Rin is silent before saying that it's so obvious that even a monkey could tell it, and says that it was all luck. Isagi then screams out and tells him to wait. He tells him that a vague answer like luck isn't enough for him, and that he needs to get stronger, and that Rin has to have something else. Rin then takes his hand on his head and says that luck isn't a result of pure coincidence, as it's an underlying element of the field that reaches only those who move by their will, telling Isagi that if he can't understand that, then he has no right to live in a competitive world. Suddenly, as they are talking, they can hear Ego, who congratulates them on clearing the second selection. He says that they wonder what luck is, and laughs before saying that it's quite an alluring discussion, before he tells them to go on and pass those doors, and as a reward for clearing the stage, he will teach them the mechanism of luck in the football world.